Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tardis Zone. This is the Tardis Zone Talks, and I'm not going to be alone tonight. So for the next hour or so, we're not going to, drag this out all night because I plan on doing plenty more streams with Jack and other people over the next couple of weeks and months ahead. Obviously, keep us still active if Doctor Who is gone. So fuck knows what we're going to talk about tonight, but we'll wing it as we go along, because we don't have a set topic. I didn't set a topic, so to be quite honest with you, they're probably the best streams anyway, because we don't know what we're going to be talking about. But I just want to say briefly first, before I do bring me guest on, don't know if anybody has seen the absolute meltdown from the melt in Staten Island, but it was let's just say it's funny. It is, you see here. Look, see, this is where I've always stood. You come after me and you come after me community, and you call them names and you attack them. I'm going to call you out. If you want that to stop, then I suggest you modify your behavior. If you can't modify your behavior, then I'm going to be here and I'm going to continue to call you out. It's as simple as that. But all of this behavior, and I know you like to gaslight whatever audience that you have, that you're the victim and people are bullying you, and people are going into your chat. Yeah, you never provide any evidence of the harassment that apparently you get online on your YouTube channel. We never see any comments. That's the thing. So and the thing about it is, we do know, because I run a YouTube channel myself, that you can hide comments. That's fine, fair enough. But if you want to prove that people are harassing you from my side of the community, as you keep claiming, then you would post those to show people that you're being abused. But you never do. Because I know for a fact that nobody is going over because I'm telling them to. If anybody's responding to you, it's because they're sick and tired of your bullshit. And everybody is sick and tired of your bullshit. So you continue to be a loser. You continue to have a little bit of a meltdown. Many tweets and videos now in the last 24 hours. You prove me point time and time again. It's not our fault that, in your world, your deluded little world, that you're right about everything. But the facts and the reality is that, well, you've never been right and you'll continue to be a loser. So, anyway, let's bring on my special guest. Not the way I really want to be starting the stream off, but, it's very hard to ignore someone like that. I've tried over the years, but it doesn't work. So I'm just gonna have fun with it. I'm just gonna rip the piss, and I don't. By the way, I have a video coming up later on. So if you're listening, because I know you've been spying on me streams, so if you're listening, Matrix loser, I have another video coming up very soon. So look out for that, because I know you'll have plenty to say about it. But go ahead, and I'm gonna see how you're gonna worm your way out of this one, because once I put this video up, you're in serious trouble, because you've crossed the line now, and you gave me the reaction that I've been waiting on. So thank you. You've just put yourself in a lot of trouble now. You probably don't realize why. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but the video will later on. But you don't get to go around calling people names and thinking that you can defame people and get away with it. See, me calling you a fraud and a loser is not defaming you, because you are a fraud, because you said you have sources and none of your sources have ever gotten that right. So that makes me conclude that you have actually got none, and you can't prove that you have sources. See, this is the thing. You won't sue me, because I would counter that and say, well, he says he has sources. I would like to know where he's getting his information from. Right, because you're accusing me of calling you a fraud, so you'd have to prove that you've got sources to counter that claim, and I know for a fact that you won't, right? Because you've been saying you're going to sue people the last 8 years. Even before I came on the scene, you are suing people, right? And you have done fuck all about it. You won't be suing anybody, right? Isn't it funny, though, before we bring Jack on, isn't it funny, though, like that, everybody, the media, fans in the know, You know, people, former editor of Doctor Who magazine, even speaking about Doctor Who's future and the possible chance of it going off air for a few years. And yeah, this clown is still maintaining that Disney is still around and all of this when everybody else is now saying the opposite. He's the only one. And the thing about it is the media is reporting on what everybody else is saying. And if he's so good at his job and he's the best at what he does and he's always right, well, then how come the media is not talking about your bullshit? Because it exactly is bullshit. That's why. And that's the thing about it. Anyway, let's see where this stream goes tonight. If anybody has anything to say in the comments in relation to anything seen in the entertainment industry, want to get our opinions on it as well, I suppose. I might get an hour conversation started as well. Let me know in the chat. I see Robert is in there. We got Stephen, JWC Reviews, Garbage, and I think that's everybody so far that I've mentioned. Oh, we got Dr. Rick Douglas, MD, as well here, and he's my hair teddy. The odd time he's just in the sitting room with me here chilling out, and we've got PD Rich also with us, who will be keeping an eye on the chat, and obviously later on we'll probably drop all the channels for us as well. Anyway, let's bring on my guest without further ado. It's the one and only Jack Rabbit.
Hello. Hi everyone in the chat.
Nice to have you on.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So yesterday, folks, if some of you don't know, yesterday after my stream, obviously Jack was already streaming on his channel, did his first podcast with Lee, Problem Being. So if you haven't checked it out, go and check it out. It was a very interesting conversation, talking about the future of Doctor Who and the direction the show probably should go in, and talking about, you know, different people who could possibly come in and stuff like that, you know. But Jack, we don't have to necessarily talk about Doctor Who today if you don't want to talk about Doctor Who, but if you want to, but I will ask you, what made you obviously start these little podcasts? What drove you to the decision to speak about Doctor Who? Because we know how indifferent you've been over Doctor Who, and rightly so, because the way you were treated by the showrunner, who told you to fuck off after you had left him a comment in an open forum on Instagram. He didn't like your comment and he basically told you to fuck off. So what drove you to do these podcasts and to actually talk about a topic that you find difficult to talk about?
Well, I think it's because when you love something, and you know, the passion is always there, even if, you know, it gets so bad that you just can't bring yourself to watch it anymore. I've been putting this off for a while, and I have done a few videos with Problem Being before, but these videos that we're doing now, the one yesterday was the first of a series, so we're actually more sort of going to be talking about the merchandise, such as the classic Doctor Who Blu-ray sets and the action figures, and just how they seem to be cheaping out in those areas. So not only has the main show just fallen through the floor, but it seems like, you know, the fans just seem to just suck up whatever's put on a plate, you know, instead of actually thinking about it. Because, you know, I do have a complete Classic Who DVD collection, so I don't want to have to buy the same thing twice. And with a lot of these Blu-ray sets, it does feel like, you know, they're marketing them as these great improvements, when actually, when you look at it, sometimes the DVDs are just better. And we're going to be covering that in a lot of other future videos. But no, it's talking about Doctor Who is, I mean, it's something that, you know, I keep saying, oh, I want to move away from, I want to, you know, just move on. But when you love something so much, that's not always an easy thing. And
it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah,
it actually is hard.
It is. It's you know, I do like talking about other stuff, but unfortunately, with the times that we're living in, everything is pretty much in the same boat. You know, there's very little franchises that haven't been affected by this. So one of the ways that I'm sort of continuing my love for them is with collecting. And you know, I've got some of you may know if you've seen my room showcase tour. I pretty much live in an Amazon storage cupboard because it's got that much stuff in it. But that's the way that I keep my love with these franchises. So I really kind of want to go more in that sort of direction. But I felt that it was important to start off with the core issue, and that is the show itself. You know, and I think we've spent hours over the years discussing its downfall, and now I think we seem to be on the relatively same page, Noel, that it's completely effed and it needs to go away.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that now. I mean, it's hard for me to actually still say that, but it needs it because, you know, even if BBC do clear house, and let's say in the ideal world they do everything that we ask them to do, right, or we suggest as fans that they should do, it's still going to, you know, I think you spoke about this on your stream yesterday as well. I mean, it's not as easy as that. I mean, you look at the damage that the previous two showrunners have done to the fandom and their fans, their sycophant fans. They've done a lot of damage, and a lot of fans have walked away. I mean, there's lifelong fans that even the mention of Doctor Who now makes them shiver. Like they don't want to be talking about it. You know, we've had some fans over the years. Well, I didn't say anything about the era, even though I didn't think it was great. I just decided to get out because I didn't want the drama. So you basically sat on the fence. There's fans like that as well. I mean, there is a lot of damage that's being done. It's not as easy as, yeah, they get every decision right. Okay, they put on a great show. Fans are not just going to come flocking back because it has Doctor Who on it and it started to be good. There has to be more after the way fans have been treated the last few years. I mean, for a showrunner to come out and tell a fan to fuck off, and look, we've seen his behavior. RTD has been like that over the years. He's come out against people. He does it all the time, and he's been allowed to get away with it. But for me, that crossed the line there when he did that. You know, Chibnall always threw his toys out of the pram. He might have had the odd swipe comment here and there, right? But he never actually came out and told fans to fuck off, right? He never actually told fans, well, if you don't like this, don't watch it. It was people in the production, to people that were there. But he never actually said, well, if you don't like it, don't watch it. He was never that arrogant, right? There's an arrogance of RTD that's there. But this is the problem that BBC have. This is why it's better, Jack, as we've all discussed now. It's better that it goes away maybe for 5 to 10 years, because the longer it goes away, then hopefully then it's missed. Hopefully there's enough time gone by that people can forget about what we've seen the last few years. But even then, I mean, this is not going to come back in a blaze of glory like it did in 2005, Jack.
No, I don't think it will. I mean, potentially, if it captures a younger generation again, then that'll be all well and good. But I think it's got a lot of rebuilding to do. I think that the fans that lived through Classic Who and then New Who, and even fans like myself who watch New Who just get worse and worse, I think it's going to be very difficult. But as I said in my video, and I think a lot of people need to realize this, a 10-year break is brilliant. But I mean, how many of you think that the BBC is truly going to change in that time? And, you know, if they don't change, then ultimately it's pointless because they run it.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, it was discussed on your channel as well, maybe taking it away from the BBC. Now, personally speaking, I've never really liked that idea. But I've got to be honest, after the last 2 eras of Doctor Who, right, maybe that's a gamble that needs to be taken. Maybe we need someone else, not a British showrunner, but someone that will bring it back to, like, I think Doctor Who personally, Jack, I don't know about you, but I know this was discussed on your channel as well, but it was cooking as well and listening. But I think Doctor Who has lost its Britishness. What makes Doctor Who, what makes it stand out is its Britishness, right? That's what's made Doctor Who stand out from all of these other shows, is the fact that it's remained very British. But I have felt over the previous two eras that's been eroded quite a lot. It doesn't feel like a British show now. It feels more like every other generic show out there, Jack. And Doctor Who shouldn't be that. It should be different. It should stand out. You know what I mean?
Well, I think if you look at the times we're in, and I did mention this in my video, is Britishness is not allowed. We seem to be the only culture in the world that, you know, simply cannot exist in any way, shape, or form, and that's why Doctor Who has lost its Britishness, because of the people who are running it. You know, when it's being run by people who feel guilty and embarrassed of Britishness, you know, it's not going to keep its British charm. And I think these people forget that it was the Britishness that made it so popular in other countries. I mean, Wallace and Gromit, it was their Britishness that made them so popular in countries like Japan. And, you know, and they go on about all this cultural appropriation bollocks. And it's like, you know, I think you'll find actually a lot of people like things because of their cultures. You know, there's a lot of people here who like American action films because, you know, of how American they are. Myself included, I like some of them. And I think, like, Doctor Who's identity is simply not allowed in today's political climate. So this is why you've got the Doctor Who you have now, by name only, because its core has been attacked and stripped away by the very people who claim to be fans.
Yeah, it's that's the thing. It's the same in Ireland. I've noticed this thing. There seems to be this thing with the left and people in charge to kind of erase national identity. It's not just shows as well, right? But it's happening in Ireland as well. There just seems to be this, you know, fascination with this utopian Star Trek-y kind of world. I mean, we're never going to get to that. I'm sorry, right? Star Trek is a dream, in my opinion. The human race is never going to get to that level. I'm sorry, we're not, right? We're just too different, all right? But there's nothing wrong with that. No. Right? We can still live on this planet in harmony and shit. Do you know what I mean? But we do have our differences, and our differences shouldn't be erased. They should be embraced. That's what makes us unique. So I don't get why you'd want to sabotage, you know, what was at one time a golden goose for BBC. You know, I keep saying it on this channel. They don't realise they do have a golden goose. They've just never been able to maybe they're just clueless, or they just don't respect Doctor Who enough. I think it's a bit of both, really, to be quite honest with you.
The BBC's never liked sci-fi, and you know that they put out great dramas, comedies, and things over the years. But I mean, sci-fi has never. Doctor Who's really kind of been, you know, like a one wonder. It was the only sci-fi that came out of the BBC that actually worked. I mean,
Red Dwarf came from BBC as well, though, didn't it? Red Dwarf came from BBC. That was success. Like, this is the thing, Jack. Though they have had successful sci-fi shots. Like that's the. I get what you're saying. The BBC is more known for their drama and their comedy, and always were. And by the way, back in the day, if people can't remember that far back, BBC were on top of their game back in the day when it came to comedy and drama. They were number one for a long, long time. I mean, the weekends on Irish and British television, it was a straight shootout between BBC and ITV. Channel 4 would feature sometimes because they would have a hit show here and there, like at the time. But like Saturday nights was big. They were always fighting for the. Could you stop? Bro, they were always fighting for the #1 spot, right? Which channel would get the #1 spot with which show or whatever. That it was all about ratings. Ratings war. Do you remember that? We had a ratings war. Now they don't seem to give a shit. But look, the state of TV, the state of the industry as a whole, right? This is the whole system is fucked. Nobody's making money. It's supposed to be about making money as well and putting out entertaining shows that actually want people to watch. But now it just seems to be we'll just throw out any old show and hope it sticks. I
think Robert Payne summed it up quite well. Is Red Dwarf was sci-fi, yes, but it was a comedy. I think when I say Doctor Who is like the only one of its kind, I mean it was serious sci-fi most of the time. Like you had something like, you know, Inferno or Seeds of Doom or Pyramids of Mars. You know, the BBC putting out something like that seemed to be exclusive to Doctor Who. And then sadly, when it came back in 2005, it sort of joined the whole bandwagon of it being camp, silly, and a comedy. It's like no one wants to take sci-fi seriously anymore, which I think is just a shame. And I'm not including Blake Seven because I mean, can you really take that seriously?
Oh, we have a bit. There's a few Blake Sevens fans in the chat. I think they'll have something to say about that. But look, you know, I don't know why there's such disrespect towards Doctor Who with the their biggest cash cow. But look, they keep making the same mistakes over and over, and I don't. You know, there's talks of obviously Disney out, and they're looking for a new streaming service. Does it really matter? Is it really going to make a difference at this stage? I personally don't think it is. It doesn't matter who you get in now. I think this show is dead, and you know, I think we've waited. Look, I have waited for this since the Chibnall era. That it gets to a point where it's completely dead. Nobody's talking about it. Now that we're actually here and the show is kind of in limbo, it is sad because it should never have ended up like this, but it has. And the best thing to do to save any dignity that's left and to protect its legacy from being damaged any further, it needs to be taken off the air. And if it's long term, so be it. You know, I hate to say it, but long term, I think the longer the better, to be quite honest with you. But something needs to give. Because look, if Amazon come in, say, who's being rumoured, or any of their streaming platforms, right? If RTD is still in charge, right, well then those streaming platforms may as well piss their money up against the wall like Disney did. Remember, right? We're kind of Disney have kind of gotten out of this one a little bit, to be honest with you. You know, all the anger seems to be directed at RTD, Bad Wolf, and BBC. Disney's not getting much slack or getting much flack. And I think the reason for that is because people have realised that Disney actually paid 100 million for this.
Yeah, it's
100 million for 2 seasons. In fairness, no matter how much you hate Disney or you don't like the way Disney do things, right? If you give someone 100 million to produce 2 seasons of Doctor Who and a spin-off, you expect the very best, especially if you're bringing back the showrunner that made the show successful in 2005. You'd be odds on if you are Disney thinking, oh, we're on to a winner here. And we'll be the streaming platform that has helped resurrect Doctor Who, right? But that's not what transpired. 100 million, can you honestly say, with everything that we've watched from RTD so far, Okay, we haven't seen the spin-off yet, but the 2 seasons he gave us, is that $100 million worth? Really?
No. In fact, I'm going to be honest. I think it was his original era looked better than this. It's just it's oversaturated. It's I don't know where that money went, but
that's the question I was going to ask you. Where do you think this money went? Because because you're right. Look, I've watched. Look, do you know what I was watching last night? Not a word of a lie. I'm actually binge watching season 1 right now. Torchwood
season,
right? Torchwood. Now, I know there's not many fans of Torchwood, but even the effects in season 1 of Torchwood are better than what we got in this era of RTD's Doctor Who. I'm not messing. The Torchwood still holds up today. I'm not messing. The one thing I did notice though that I thought was weird, because obviously when you watch back, you don't know, you kind of notice these things, but you kind of put it in the back of your head. But after watching Torchwood, there seemed to be a fascination with Chris Chibnall of putting Captain Jack up on top of buildings for no fucking reason whatsoever, just standing looking over Cardiff. Like, it just, but telling you, man, the effects in that, so much better than what we've gotten in Doctor Who. And I can't, that 100 million. That's why, listen, this is why I don't blame Disney personally, and this is why I don't blame Disney if they have walked away. Why the fuck would you give RTD more money to produce shite like that? Why? That'd be madness. Jack, if you are working for Disney, right, you're the one that, the money man, the one that making the decision, right? You are presented those 2 seasons, you have, and you pretend you've seen the spin-off, right? The same old shite with messaging in it. Would you hand RTD another contract to extend the deal, and would you offer RTD more money to continue making more Doctor Who?
No, I'd be getting lawyers on the phone and looking into suing.
See, that's what I said. Yeah, you give 100 million, you produce that, you deserve to be sued. To be quite honest with you, and by the way, I think Jack was actually got this spot fucking on the night of the regeneration reveal of, well, not regenerate, Billy Piper showing up, and Jack texted me that night, he DM'd me that night. And do you remember what you said to me in that conversation about the whole Billy Piper thing?
Roughly, I think I just told people not to panic, because I just thought it was a RTD's last middle finger just to piss us off, because he has a track record for doing this.
Exactly. That's what you said, right? You said, that's exactly what you said to me. You said, this is nothing. This is just RTD, you know, basically giving the fans, well, he's come out, obviously he's done an interview recently and he's made some comments and some quotes from that. And he was asked about Billy Piper out straight, if Billy Piper was the Doctor. And do you know what his response was? Now, remember, by the way, guys, this is apparently from the showrunner of Doctor Who, right? He turned around and says, I have no idea if she's the Doctor. Right? So he puts that scene in, right? So Jack is right, because I even because it was nice timing when Jack actually texted me, because I was about to go on a big, epic, major rant on X, right, and do a video and say, how fucking dare you for fucking make a mockery and blah 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 blah. And Jack says, look, it's just a piss take. This is not going to lead anywhere, right? And the thing about it is he's now kind of confirmed that with those comments. He doesn't know if Billy Piper is the Doctor. So why did you bring her back? Well, he brought her back because, as Jack said, final middle finger for us not supporting him. I will never support that man again in any endeavour with Doctor Who. Right? He's done as far as I'm concerned. You know what? Someone said, a lot of people have been saying this actually. It's like he saw Chibs was destroying the legacy of the show. And he said, fuck that. I'm not letting anybody destroy the legacy of the show. If someone's going to destroy the legacy of the show, it's going to be me, because I'm the one that brought it back in the first place. And that's what this feels like to me with RTD. It seems to be very vindictive. And I don't think he ever had any intentions of doing right by Doctor Who. I think once he was given the keys again and he was given all that money, he knew that the one thing he did know, I don't think he had a plan, like he said, because he said he was writing scripts for years and all that. That's bullshit, right? I reckon once he got it, he knew that he wanted to put messaging in Doctor Who. And he's angry with the government, he's angry with the world, he's angry with America for electing Donald Trump, all of this playing around, then all the trans rights, all of this activism and all of this. He saw an opportunity and he says, well, if Disney want to waste 100 million, I will fucking take it. And that's what I believe happened. And I do think Disney should sue, personally. I would not, I could not say, if that's what you've given us, that's not good enough. You've broke the terms.
I think the trouble is Russell T Davies views Doctor Who as his, and that's the problem. I think, he's like, well, it's my show, I can do what I want with it, kind of mentality. And I don't think many people picked up on this, but me with my RTD impressions, I absolutely bloody love this. Not because it's good, but just because I am astounded at how little people have picked up on the fact that he is laughing at you. There is a particular scene in the Doctor Who Confidential, it's called Redacted or something, isn't it?
Yeah, Redacted now, yeah.
In for the giggle, where he's talking about bi-generation, and he says, do you want me to do it in my voice?
Yeah, go on, do it in his voice. I love when you do his voice. Go on.
Bi-generation, it's a new thing. It's the 60th. Imagine how much fans love new things and will really rejoice when this happens.
I mean,
that's him. Make no mistake. That is him laughing at you because he knows he's going to piss people off. But
he did actually say in an interview, Jack, didn't he? He said that, I remember in the early interviews, he said that he was going to do a lot of stuff that would rub long-term fans up the wrong way. He actually did say it.
Yeah, he told you right from the get-go. And I saw so many red flags with the red carpet interviews. I mean, one of the first was Doctor Who always has something new to say. And, that's never a good thing to hear. Then him going off on a stupid rant next to Gatwell, about the Tory government. Well, they didn't stay in for much longer, so all your ranting was for absolutely nothing. And then just, then there was the whole thing that happened to me when he told me to F off. And keep in mind, even though he did that, I still watched the 60th anniversary stories. Because I was a fan. And I was stupid. I was ignorant. And I thought, maybe he could make me feel like a kid again. Of course not. So then the Davos thing happened. And I think for Lee, that was the final straw. I think, and as it should be, because, I mean, it's just the most ridiculous thing ever. I don't think anyone ever saw Davos as someone in a wheelchair. And even if he was someone in a wheelchair, are you saying people who are disabled can't be villains? So who's really being offensive here? And then, of course, we knew that there was going to be a trans character in oh god, I can't even remember the names. The Star Beast. We knew there was going to be a trans character.
Rose Noble.
I was like, well, look, Captain Jack was in Doctor Who back in 2005, which, according to RTD, was this big gay revolution when it actually wasn't. But so maybe he'll just treat him like a character and not get in our faces about it. Oh God, was I wrong? So I actually watched this with my parents, and my jaw was dropped because I just couldn't believe how on the nose it was. And then by the time the episode was finished, my mom just looked at me and went, "Well, that was shit, wasn't it?" And I still tuned in to watch that shit one on the bland spaceship where they all have stretchy limbs and things. I can't remember the name of that one. And for that story, as soon as it came out, And everyone immediately realized, well, that was shit. The first thing RTD does is make a very awful video where he's like, see, I get this plot secret. I get the plot of this episode secret. Well, mostly because I realized that when the audience saw it, they realized how utterly shit it was. So I was going to get a backlash. So basically, the Doctor arrives on the spaceship, he starts crying, and then something happens, and then, they meet evil versions of themselves. But that's it. That's all you're getting. That's absolutely it. And then, he's like he's trying to justify his shit writing. Like, what, you thought there was going to be more to it than that? And of course he wins. Of course the Doctor does. Are you really expecting anything else? It's Doctor Who. Of course the Doctor's going to win. It's like he's treating you all like idiots at this point. And I'm just like, and I saw stream after stream of so many people defending it, like, oh, it's actually quite good. Actually, it's like, are you brain dead? Like, even Russell T Davies is coming out and being like, well, who do you think you are, questioning my work? And then finally there was the giggle, and that was just, I think that was everyone with a functioning brain's jumping off point, to be quite honest, because when Gatwell splurged out of Tennant's penis, I was just done. And then, like you say, you had the whole bi-generation interview with him, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not holding out much hope at all. So I stopped watching, and I haven't watched a single Gatwell episode, and I won't. And
you've saved yourself. I can tell you that for someone that has watched all of Gatwell's episodes, you haven't missed that. I mean, his performances alone, these are one of the questions that people need to be questioning. How the fuck did Ncuti Gatwa ever get the casting role in Doctor Who? I won't say any more than that, but I just think it's an absolute disgrace. When RTD has openly admitted that, he had already someone else in mind, they'd already made their choice, and all of a sudden that was changed. And I'm not going to say any more than that, but I think it's just absolutely disgraceful. I think RTD, deserves all the criticism he's getting. I still don't believe he's getting enough criticism, though. The media are still kind of licking his arse. The bottom line is like, the reason why the show's future is up in the air is because of RTD and Chibnall before him. People in the media, fans are making excuses, Jack, and this is another thing that's actually annoying me, is the excuses, because we're past excuses now. The only reason why Doctor Who is not doing well anymore is because the writing is absolutely rubbish. Then you want to lecture the audience on top of that. And then some of the casting decisions that you're making are based off DEI, which is openly admitted, right? And then on top of that, then you've got someone that you brought in that's writing scripts that, don't make any sense. There's no character development. Rose Noble is the perfect example of where RTD differs from 2005. We brought up Captain Jack, right? Captain Jack was introduced to Doctor Who, okay, in, what was it, The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances, right? And he was a well-liked character, and yes, he was bisexual. But was it about his bisexuality? No, Captain Jack was an interesting character, and then later on, obviously, he got developed more on the show, and then he ended up getting his own spin-off. But you look at Rose Noble, she's introduced into the Star Beast, and then after that, then pops up once in a while, and that's the level of character development. See, this is the thing as well. The fans out there say, you're giving up because the character is trans and this, that, and the other. Yeah, well, yeah, some people will be giving out that the character is trans because people do believe the transgender ideology is a cult, and it's affecting children and things like that. So there is opposition against it. But the other part of that is as well, if you're going to make such a deal about bringing a trans character into Doctor Who, well, then fans expect that character to be fully fleshed out and developed. Now, can people honestly say that Rose Noble in this era of Doctor Who was fleshed out and developed? And I would have to say No, but that was like even Shooty Gatwell's doctor. Did Shooty Gatwell's doctor get fleshed out and developed? No, he was the same all the way through, insufferable crybaby, you know? I mean, there was no, this is the thing. These are the things that make Doctor Who stand out to their shows. The writing has to be a certain level, right? Because back then for Doctor Who to survive, it was about the writing. It was about telling good stories and fleshing out those characters. Now in modern Who, it's like writing's taking a back seat. You know, even acting nowadays is taking a back seat. Some of the acting in that era was atrocious. And I mean, we suffered through Whittaker's era, and she was atrocious. But I'd have to say, and I've said this many a time, Jack, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and this is why I'm glad you haven't watched the Shooty Gatwa era. I mean, if I'm saying that the Jodie Whittaker era is better than this, then you know that this is really a shit show, Jack, because I was not a fan, as you know, of Jodie Whittaker. But if I'm saying that I would sit there and I would rather watch a Jodie Whittaker episode over anything that RTD has given us the past 2 seasons, you probably would have said I deserve to be put in a mental hospital if I had said that to you. Ted, don't. I mean, that's how bad it is, Jack.
Well, it looks like him telling me to F off was a good thing, quite honestly. But it's just, you know, I do love Doctor Who very much, and you know, as I've gotten older and my creativity has broadened a bit, I just can't help but be like, oh, do you know, if I had it, I'd do this with it. There's so many cool things I do with characters, and there's all this potential. And to just see these people who just want to come and just lecture us, and they don't actually give a toss about what they have, you know, and just parade it around like it's nothing more than a vehicle for whatever message they want to shove down our throats. It's absolutely just heartbreaking, to be honest. And I think you just have to get to a point where you're like, I'm better than this, you know, I shouldn't have to get stressed or upset over this anymore. And that's really just where I've been. But in answer to your question from earlier, what made me want to talk about Doctor Who, the truth is that as I've had so much going on in my personal life, my mom's been ill, I've lost family members, that I've really just had to kind of tune out of it a bit as much as I can. Because, you know, Doctor Who isn't here for me anymore. It's not there for me when I'm going through my bad times. And, you know, according to Russell and people like him, I'm the most evil thing on the face of the earth, you know, just for existing. So it's like you just can't seem to have anything anymore.
That's what I mean. I mean, look, I even remember, you know, when I'd had down days and stuff like that, Doctor Who was on TV. I knew I would my day would just be a little bit better, or it end a little bit better than it began. But I do agree with you. I mean, there's nothing to fall. Well, Doctor Who, you can't fall back on Doctor Who now. But it is. Look, it's just the whole situation is their own fault. And all of these other, you know, and I'll say it again, and I call them sellouts, and that's exactly what you are. You know, if your fans in a privileged position, and you know deep down that it's wrong. I mean, you know what pisses me off is now that the show has kind of gone away, and they know that the gig is up. Now they're coming out and criticising. Yeah, but you're criticising after you got to go to premieres. You're criticising after you got to get access to the Tardis set and the production team. Yeah. So you've already gotten all your little goodies, but now you feel like because, you know, RTD is probably out the door and Disney is gone, that now all of a sudden you can speak up and gaslight is our audience, even though you've been attacking fans for the last few years who have now, you are repeating exactly everything we've all said, right? But yeah, you went and criticised for the last couple of years, but now you have changed your tune because now, you know, the party is over, and now you feel like you can speak up. those fans annoy me. We wouldn't be in this position if some of these fans look at. I don't care if you don't get to go to a premiere because you spoke up. You spoke up and had a backbone. Because I could tell you something. If I was in that position, I'd be speaking up and saying, "Listen, look, you can kick me off the set, but I just want to say, as a Doctor Who fan, the way this show is being treated over the last few years has been absolutely disgraceful, and I see it's going the same way." I'd open my mouth. I wouldn't give a fuck about premieres and free goodies, right? I'm a fan, right? Right? Every fan should want to protect and want the best of this fucking show. And another thing, fans that have lowered their standards over the last few years as well pisses me off. And whether you have done it intentionally or it just happened naturally, that's another thing as well that pisses me off. There's a lot of people that could have been vocal in this fandom that could have made a difference that chose not to make a difference. And they're also responsible for the state that the fandom is in, the state that the show is in, not just the showrunners and the production teams that they were running. So, I mean, look, we'll go back to the point, Jack, that even if they do make all the changes, as we said, that are necessary to win back the British public, to win back Doctor Who fans, is going to take them a long, long time.
Yep, because I think, people aren't stupid. When something's bad, they'll leave. And I think Doctor Who, I think it's a testament to just how dedicated and loyal the Doctor Who fans were. That for one thing, they sat through most of Moffat's shite, and then a lot of them gave season 11 a chance, and then even a lot came back to see if season 12 had improved. And I just think there's only so many times you can get burned before you just go, nah. And the only way Doctor Who is ever going to build goodwill again is for the next showrunner to just gleefully say that this show will have nothing to do with that Welsh twat who has been running it into the ground since 2005, or anyone that he was associated with. And you just listen to that audience applaud. I would love to see that happen, because everyone knows that it's the people behind it who are causing this. And I just think, if you think that a break is going to make these people, gain some creativity, it's like, no, it's not. It's not.
No.
And I know that many people, I know Golden Age Geek especially, messages me. He still loves RTD's original era. That's fantastic. I don't want to take that away from anybody. I still love some episodes. I can't help but get that childhood nostalgia when I watch it. But as I've gotten older and as I've gotten more creative and I've seen amazing things like Alien, Terminator, and all these wonderful things, I look at Doctor Who and I go, it could easily be up there with the greats. Classic Who was held back by its budget. You don't have that excuse anymore. The stuff you can do today with just basic programs I'd love Doctor Who to keep practical effects, the wonderful artists out there that you could hire to create great monsters, the talent out there you could hire to write good scripts, but you won't, because most of those people, I guarantee you, would be like myself, coming from a working class and struggling in life, and they only want their elitist friends, and they only want to have Doctor Who all for themselves. They want it to reflect them and them only. And this is why I went into this so much in my stream, because if people are stupid enough to think that a 5-year break and the BBC will be back in top form, you are deluding yourself. And I'm sorry, Noel, but do you want to know the reason why Doctor Who has failed? It's not just the people who've run it, it's the fandom. And this honestly is what's made me infamous, but it is the fans, because this fandom just seems to want to lap up everything it's served, which is what I'll be going into detail with my merchandise series. People have got to start really, and people say, oh, well, you're not a real fan, you hate it. It's like, yeah, I hate it because I love it so much. That's the truth. And I would love to see, some of the ideas I've got, come to fruition and stuff. But unfortunately, I don't think Doctor Who is ever going to change, because the wrong kind of people have inherited it. And I don't think they're going to let it go. I think they're going to grip very tightly, and they're not going to let it slip through their fingers, because they'll never admit that they failed. And to be honest, when
Yeah,
I
but
watch,
I'll ask you this question though. But are they really in a strong position now, as they would have been, say, back in the day? Like, I mean, they've had like 2 poor eras now of Doctor Who. It's clearly on its last legs. Do they really still possess all of that power, even though they failed so badly?
well, I don't,
Do you know
I
what I
don't,
mean?
I don't.
Do you not think there is a possibility of it being wrestled off their hands now, because they have fucked it up? No matter what the spin is, Jack, right? We know that it's dead. It's dead in the water. Like, it is actually dead in the water now. Like, even the rumors of the Disney Plus ratings have said that's why they've never released them. Apparently, they're really, really poor. Like, this show is dead. It's not. Like, I mean, if Lazarus was dead, but he was able to be resurrected, Doctor Who, I don't see it being resurrected, because it's dead. So could this not be an opportunity over the next few years for fans like yourself? As you said, you're very creative. You can work your way up the ladder. Other fans out there as well work your way up the ladder and try to get in there, you know, and influence fucking decisions that are made. Because I do agree with you. The Elite talks about this Fitzroy group, you know, that have their hands on Doctor Who, and they're not going to let it go. And they're going to try very hard, as you said, to hold on to it. But I don't think they're in as much as a strong position as people think they are now, because of what's happened. I mean, if you spectacularly, like, especially when it does get announced that Disney is gone, think about it. That is going to look really, really bad. The biggest streaming service, no matter what spin they put on it, that Disney is going in a new direction or whatever bullshit they come up with, that the biggest streaming platform to walk away from Doctor Who after 2 seasons and a spin-off is not going to be a good look, no matter how much they try to spin it. So do you think it's impossible to? Do you still think it's impossible to wrestle it away?
I think so. And the reason why I say this is because as I've said, the BBC is very elitist. It likes going with who it knows. And I just think that even if there's a break, I don't think Russell T Davies will ever be at the helm again, or Julie or Phil or Jane or any of those people. But I do think that the descendants of those people, the BBC will always be a group of elitist, you know, blip, because I don't want to say it on live stream, you know, that they will always be that. And I just think they might come back and they might say, oh, this is going to be new, it's going to be fresh, but it's still going to be more the same. I think the BBC can still distribute Doctor Who, you know, it can still have the BBC on it, but I think if they have any creative power whatsoever, you're just going to get more of the same, because I think the BBC has proven time and time again that they don't know how to handle Doctor Who. Look at the tragedy with Classic Who and how they deliberately sabotaged it. You know, the narrative is that JNT messed everything up, which some of the decisions he made were bad, but actually the BBC wanted the show gone and they went out of their way to make sure it happened. It came back in 2005 and it reflected the BBC values. So when those values started to get hated by the general public, they fought tooth and claw to try and keep it going, when really it should have been gone, no, this isn't working. And unfortunately, if it comes back, you know, and it's still the same BBC, the same people who covered for evil people, the same BBC who haven't got a genuine bone in their body, it's still going to have the same problems, because it is a cult. As PD Rich says in the chat, it is a cult. And the Doctor Who is one of their, cult, I don't know what you call, like, you know, cult worship pieces on the altar. Doctor Who is one of those pieces. And it's such a shame, because it was created by people who weren't a part of that at all, you know, but it just had the misfortune to be bloody run by the BBC, which has always held the show back, in my opinion. And,
so what you're basically saying, in a nutshell, is that the best way for Doctor Who to move forward now would be to take it out of BBC's hands. So the question I'll ask is, do you think BBC would ever, I know they wouldn't outright sell it, right, what with Star Wars, but do you think there's a possibility of, like, you know, doing a deal with a streaming service that they can take obviously creative control, or they have more power and decisions and when it comes to the showrunner and stuff like that. But
if I'm being honest, I don't want it to be a streaming service, and I don't like streaming. I think it's going to kill entertainment, and I think it's already happening. I'll be doing a review of Squid Game soon, and no spoilers, but I was a bit disappointed. I think streaming is killing entertainment. But what I mean is that I think that the BBC can still make money from it. They can still distribute it, but I think creative control has to be given to a new team, maybe that have their own company, a new group, a team who hire people from all walks of life, you know, who just want to tell great stories. And I think if that happens, you have a reason to be excited, or at least curious. If that doesn't happen and it's just going to be another BBC corporation like BBC Drama, BBC Wales, I would not be getting your hopes up. That's really what I would say on that. But I hope it doesn't go to some big streaming service like Amazon, because we've seen the crap they've been tuning out. And honestly, streaming is killing entertainment right now in a big way. And I think people need to start waking up to that.
No, I was saying it to Cheryl there, I think it was last week, we were actually talking about the whole streaming model, because we were watching movies, obviously, and it just came up, and I actually brought it up about, you know, the quality of television, like cable, if you want to call it that as such, has completely fell off because of streaming.
And the reason,
the streaming model, me personally, the streaming model was a fad. It should have died out a long time ago. I don't know how it's managed to stick around.
The reason why I think it does this is because you're not allowed to plan an ending. And the reason for this is because you can start off with a new IP, and a streaming company will say, well, we'll try one season and see how it goes. If it does really well, you'll get a second season. If it does badly, you won't. So right out of the gate, you can't really plan an ending, because if you want to wrap up your story, and the ending is the most important part of any story, and you're going to get a phone call from the streaming company, and they're going to say, no, this is too big. This is making us millions. You can't end it. Or if you are going to end it, you have to make it an open ending. And this is why all the big shows, Squid Game, Arcane, League of Legends, have all had terrible, what seem like rushed and very put together endings, which make the whole show seem absolutely bloody pointless that you invested any time in, because the streaming services want to keep those IPs going by any means necessary. And when you can't have an ending to a story, it's absolutely bloody meaningless. And that is why...
And there's a flip side to that as well, though, Jack, as well, because we've seen, especially with Netflix, because Netflix have a habit of doing it, they will have a hit show on their fucking hands, and then all of a sudden it'll just stop. Like, as you said, it'll just, like, they won't even renew it. Like, so sometimes, like, it's the opposite as well.
Yeah, I've always found that
they'll
very
have a
strange.
hit show and then yeah, it is because you would think that streaming platforms like that would want to keep the most successful shows on that platform, you know, to be better than everybody else, I suppose, because it is a competition, isn't it, between all of the streaming services. But now they all seem to be merging with each other and all of this. But yeah, the streaming model for me, I look, I don't have any of the streaming platforms. I gave them up. We used to have them. I used to have Netflix, there's Disney Plus, the usual suspects, like everybody, even Sky. You know, I had then the ordinary TV with fucking RTE and the Irish stations that you get here. I've none of them now. I've gotten rid of them all. I don't have Disney Plus. I don't have Netflix. When I said I was boycotting Disney Plus, I meant that we got rid of Disney Plus out of this house. We don't have Netflix. We don't have any streaming service. I have plenty of DVDs and Blu-rays there, and I have a PlayStation. If I want to watch a movie, I'll watch it there. Do you know what I mean? or on YouTube now. On YouTube now, they're releasing some fucking movies on YouTube for free as well, and some of them are actually quite good.
I mean,
You
I
know?
do have Paramount Plus, which is the only streaming service I chose to pay for, and one of the reasons actually being is because it has the entirety of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which trying to find in physical media has become increasingly difficult. Which I also think this is by design, so that you feel forced to go to these streaming services. I've noticed that they're starting to make releases of, like special editions, 4Ks, very limited, so that, collecting physical media is going to be much harder. But I do think that streaming services do have a good use, in a sense. They often throw a load of films on there, some good, some awful. It is nice, you just think, oh, I haven't seen that, I'll give it a go. And if it turns out to be a film that you really like, you can always say, I want to add that to my physical media collection. So it's a nice way to decide. And then if you don't like the film, you haven't wasted any money or space on a Blu-ray. So I find it has that use. But I'm getting sick of all these big shows that are the next big cultural thing, and then the final series or the ending just being rushed for whatever corporate interference. It's going to be the death of art.
It's actually weird that you say that, because I remember the big fuss that was made over Stranger Things, right? And like everybody, I watched the fourth season and was kind of in awe of it, right? I kind of still didn't know what the fuck was going on, but I enjoyed it enough. But I remember going into season 2, and I just lost interest almost straight away. I don't know what it was. It just didn't grab me then after that. And I feel that happens quite a lot as well with a lot of shows, especially those ones that are really hyped up like Stranger Things. You probably will get one good season, and then the rest are all pretty average after that. So I don't watch any new Netflix shows. You know what I'll watch? Obviously, I don't have Netflix, but I could still watch shit that Netflix put out, because there's ways, let's just say. But I'll watch their crime fucking stuff, and their biographical documentaries and stuff like that, because they're interesting. That's all. If I was ever to get Netflix again, that's all I would get it for. I wouldn't watch any of the shows or the movies, so it'd be a waste of money for me. So that's why I don't. But I can understand you getting Paramount Plus, because I'm a huge fan of the Turtle Man. That cartoon back in the day was everything to me, and people of that group growing up, man. The movies as well. I love the 3 original movies. Like, those movies get stick, but I love those 3 original movies, and I know they have flaws and stuff, but I just love the fact that they did a kind of, back in their day, we would call it a live action version. That's deadly. Hold on, I'll big screen that. I'll remove me. But big live action version of the Turtles. That was fucking deadly. I remember the promotion, man. It was huge. Hold on. Oh, he's got them all there. Predator, Alien, one of the Turtles. That's just the thing. My mum will back me up on this. I used to draw all the Turtles. Now, I'm not a good drawer. I'll just admit, I'm not as good as Jack. Jack can get the details and the shading and all of that. I wouldn't have a clue with that. But I could draw basic Turtles, like with their different headbands and all of that. And you'd know who they were a bit shit. But like, seriously, man, I was obsessed with that, Thundercats, and the real Ghostbusters. They were the 3 for me that I watched the most. And I did watch He-Man, actually. I think everybody fucking watched that as well. But the Turtles, I remember when that movie came out, man, in the 90s, man. 1990 was the first one, wasn't it? It was hyped up to bits, man. I remember Newsround, right? Because obviously Newsround was on BBC, obviously. But Newsround, and they did a whole special, if I remember. They did a whole special feature, if I remember, on the set when the tour. This was huge, man. I don't think people remember how big the Turtles promotion was. But that I remember watching that first movie and just being blown away by it. And still to this day, there's just something about those three movies that I'll always go back and watch them over the. Now, listen, I have watched the Megan Fox ones, right? They changed the origin story and all of that shit and stuff. But I didn't mind them. I actually thought they were fun, but I could understand reasons why some fans would be given out about the direction they actually went in. But I enjoyed them. But give me the three original movies, especially the third. I do like the third one. I think the third one's better than the second one. Obviously, the first one's deadly, but yeah, second one's the weakest one in my opinion. What's it? The Secret of the Ooze was not what the second one was called. Yeah, so yeah, man. We grew Batman as well would have come out in 1990 as well. Geez, we were spoiled for movie 89. So we would have had Batman in 89, the Turtles in the 90s. Well, we were spoiled rotten, man. I'm not messing.
I was a bit weird. See, I hated the cartoons that I was growing up with. A lot of them were American and very annoying. But I was raised by my grandparents, so I was watching like the old Tom and Jerry's, the old Looney Tunes, and and the old Scooby Doo's, and that was me set. But I did in recent years I went back and I watched Batman the animated series from the 90s, and I was just like, my God, like this is Batman for me. Even though I didn't grow up with it.
See, this is the thing, Jack. People don't realize some of these animations that they made back then were groundbreaking, and they did actually establish a lot of the characters that we love and know today. And it kind of, it kind of pisses me off because you see it on X all the time, how much people are clueless. You have your Zack Snyder fans that think they're experts on Batman, but then every time they come up with something stupid, a fan can show them in a comic as something that happened because, right now they're all obviously going mad because James Gunn's Superman is about to be released worldwide. And of course, everybody, I am a Superman fan. I'm not a fan of James Gunn. I've made that clear. But unlike the Zack Snyder fans, I'm at least willing to go into this movie with a bit of an open mind. But, there are certain things, that we've seen that reflect what happens in the comics. And these Zack Snyder fans are just showing how fucking clueless they are in understanding the Superman character. Listen, I'm going to say this. Man of Steel, I have a soft spot for, right? Henry Cavill, I do love him as Superman, right? But the bottom line is, right, and I'm going to say something controversial to some people out there, but the Snyderverse, in my opinion, was visually spectacular, right? But when it came to substance, it lacked. Therefore, in my opinion, the Snyderverse was bang average, right? The fact that these people still continue to fight for Snyder, for him to come back, why would you want him to come back? He was bang average, right? You mightn't like James Gunn and his vision for Superman, but you haven't even seen the movie yet, and already it's the worst Superman movie ever made, according to half of these gobships.
I will fight.
Are you looking forward to this movie? Actually, the Superman movie? Are you?
Not really, and I don't know. I'll give it a chance, definitely, but all I'll say is Superman is someone who can take a bullet to the eye and not flinch. This Superman gets hit with a glass bottle and falls to the floor.
Yeah, we did see that in the very first trailer.
I'm like, excuse me?
You're right.
And I just have this horrible feeling that once again, he has to be nerfed. He has to be either made to be evil or he has to be dulled down. I'm just like, I'm not a fan of James Gunn. The Scooby-Doo films from the 2000s, although they're a bit fun, should have been red flags. The Guardians of the Galaxy films are okay, but the third one is not great.
I mean, the first Guardians of the Galaxy is good. I think the other two are shite, man.
I quite like the second one. That's an unpopular opinion.
I'm not a fan of Gunn, though. This is the thing. I do have me worries with this, but you know, as I said, it's a Superman movie. We've been crying out for a decent Superman movie for a long time. As I said, I have a soft spot for Man of Steel, but it's not. See, here's the thing. I think we're kind of, for fans like me, right? Listen. See, here's the difference, right? There's different types of Supermans, right? In my opinion, there's those ones that are experts in the comic books, know everything about Superman, and have probably watched the animated shows and all the different stuff connected with Superman. Then there's fans like me that grew up with George Reeves' Superman, that show, and then the Christopher Reeves movies, right? So that's what we base our conclusion of what Superman is. My issue with this movie seems to be is that, okay, maybe the comic book fans have been calling out for a type of movie like this, right? But as I said, we're used to seeing Superman like Christopher Reeves, you know, and it wasn't, okay, Quest of Peace, I suppose, is probably something similar to what we're going to get in James Gunn's Superman, like the comic book aspect of it, because I think that character in Quest of Peace was a comic book character that I'm not quite sure, but that's the Superman I grew up on. When I see this Superman, I see this as a live action cartoony kind of thing, and I didn't watch the Superman cartoons, to be quite honest with you. Right? I didn't grow up on that. I grew up on the movies, as I said. That's what I base my knowledge of Superman on, and I've always loved the Christopher Reeves movies. Even Quest for Peace, it's an abomination, but I'd still watch it. Like, you know what I mean? Even Superman 3 is awful, in my opinion, but I still watch it. And I know people have problems with the second one, but I love the second one, and I love the first movie. That's what I base Superman on. I think James Gunn's just trying too hard to adapt his universe, kind of like comic book style, and then the characters just look stupid. I mean, Nathan Fillion's character, I mean, the way he's dressed just looks it just looks awful. It looks like something that does belong in a cartoon, and this is the issue that I have, is that he's kind of gone with a more comic booky Superman, but that's not what we want. I don't think you realize that's not what we want. You know, we had the Henry Cavill one, sort of a bit dire, you know, a bit dour, you know, yeah, the moments of you know, lifting the human spirit up and all of this shit. But overall, if you look at that movie was just like the walking depressed Superman. You know, it might have featured Henry Cavill as Superman, but it didn't feel like a Superman movie to me. And I just feel that this James Gunn version doesn't feel like a Superman movie to me. I don't know what your opinion is on it, Jack, but that's how I feel.
Me and Lee recently watched the Christopher Nolan Superman trilogy, and I have to say it's the first time I've watched them all the way through. I'm ashamed to say it, and I'm like, yeah, I think that this is Superman. And I even enjoyed the third one. I saw a lot of parallels with Spider-Man 3, which is I do love the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. For me, they're the definitive. But yeah, Superman isn't my. I wouldn't say, like, I would not say I'm not a fan, but for me, it's always been Spider-Man and Batman. They're my two favorites.
The Batman trilogy is, look, the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy is okay. The third movie, I think, is the weakest. But Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are just absolutely fucking out of this world, especially The Dark Knight. That second movie in that trilogy, and Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. I know some people have their take on his version of the Joker, But I loved it. I loved everything about that movie. That second movie to me is perfect. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not look at Batman. It's always been Batman for me as well, and Superman. But it would always be Superman. But over recent years, obviously, Batman's kind of overtaken, and the reason why that is because they just haven't. I don't think they know. It's a bit like Doctor Who with the BBC. I think with Superman and Warner Brothers. I don't think they know what to do with Superman.
Well, no, but it's like I say, with the political climate, Superman isn't allowed because he's patriotic. He's, very conservative values. He loves America. It's not allowed. So that's why you haven't gotten a good Superman, because you're not allowed.
Yeah, apparently they changed one of the American way. Apparently that's going to be changed. Just more fucking nonsense. But there's been leaks about this movie and it doesn't sound good. Apparently, if the leaks are true, Superman's going to be criticized online or something and shit. And there's going to be a bit like what we saw in that. Well, you didn't see because you were not stupid enough to actually watch RTD's era. But they did a whole thing where an online hate campaign against fucking UNIT and all of this, and turns the whole fucking country against UNIT. It was fucking ridiculous, Jack.
If I'm going to be honest.
But it seems to be the same theme with this Superman movie. Apparently, he's going to be criticised. It's going to be a lot of online.
Yeah, they're probably going to make him
harassment
to be. So,
I just want a good Superman. I honestly don't think, though, for me, the original movie franchise with Christopher Reeves, I know people have a problem with the 3 movies after Superman, the movie. Obviously, people have different criticisms of part 2, 3, and 4. But for me, I just, even though I did like Henry as Superman, and I'm proud to put his name with the rest of the lads that played Superman. You're not ever going to beat, in my opinion, you're never going to top Christopher Reeves. I don't know what it is about the first movie, but there's the one thing I could say. The original franchise, the kind of man that he was, and I don't think you will ever be able to replicate that again. It doesn't matter how good your script is. I don't think there is an actor out there to properly take over the mantle of Christopher Reeves. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, maybe I'm stuck in my ways, but I see Christopher Reeves as the definitive Superman and the Superman, and that'll never change no matter how many years go by. You know what I mean? And watching that movie for the first time as a kid back in the day, them opening titles, the way it went and everything, the music, just everything, it was captivating from start to, and that movie still to this day holds up as one of the greatest. It is the greatest Superman movie ever made. These Snyder cult to say Man of Steel's the great. It's not. It's a good movie. There's some things that are controversial in it that fans don't like, but compared to Superman, Superman the movie had more heart. It was also a bit more light-hearted. Henry Cavill's Superman, or Zack Snyder's version, felt like a slog to get through, to be quite honest with you. Yet he had these moments in it, but I would choose Superman the movie over Man of Steel any day of the week. It's the definitive movie, in my opinion, and I don't think you'll ever be able to replicate that again. I wish James Gunn the best, but look, he's controversial. You've touched on it. We won't get into it, but people already know. He put out a series of posts that were controversial, very controversial. So there's a tainted view of James Gunn as it is, and now he's gotten one of the biggest, characters in Warner Brothers, and now he's charged with, creating this universe, and I just don't see it being successful, to be quite honest with you. I think DC is in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say about Zack Snyder, though, is he did a great movie in 2011 called Legend of the Guardians. I don't know
Yeah,
if you've ever seen it.
no, I haven't. I'll admit
It's
that.
great. It's the animation is stunning, so much detail. It's got some violence in there. It's got some great characters, and it's about owls, and it's really genuinely good. It seems to have gone under the radar, and I was always very upset that it didn't get a sequel. But I went to see it at the cinema, and I loved it. And yeah, I'd say really check that one out.
Yeah, I do like me animation, so I will. I just, you know, just going back to the two Zack Snyder. Look, for me, right, I know Christopher Nolan didn't want to get bogged down, right? But if you do the Dark Knight trilogy, you know, in fairness, for me, if you were going to get anybody to build a universe, for me, it should have been Christopher Nolan to be given. But I know he wouldn't have wanted to do that, and obviously, it's been the right decision because look at the movies he's made fucking since. Like, I mean, he seems to make hit movie after fucking hit movie after hit movie. So, you know, but that's who I really wanted to take over. And for me, he was the only man. I didn't think Zack Snyder was good enough, to be quite honest with you, and I don't think James Gunn is going to be either. I would love to see this Superman movie make money and not make a loss. I think we're due a decent movie. But I think it'll be other movies that have gone under the radar. For example, that Grand Prix movie that Bleeding Brad Pitt has done is a hit. That's become a hit. So I think it'll be movies. I don't think any of the blockbusters are going to do as well. I mean, Fantastic Four is coming out as well. I mean, there's even some people, Jack and Jack, that are kind of know the industry and how it works, that the Fantastic Four movie might actually outperform the James Gunn Superman movie, which would be a real kick in the teeth.
I mean, Fantastic Four hasn't really had a good
No.
run, has it? Aside from, I think the cartoon was good, but in terms of films, I've heard all versions haven't been worth watching. I haven't seen any of them personally. But
see, here's the thing with Fantastic Four. I think it's the same with the Hulk. Fantastic Four to me doesn't work. I think the same with the Hulk.
I did really enjoy the because there's two Hulk films. I know there's the Hulk and the Incredible Hulk. I actually really liked the Hulk, as I thought that was the better of the two films. I thought the Incredible Hulk was okay, but I don't know. I thought that Hulk film was really good.
I just think some characters, I don't know, as you said, multiple times, and they've actually failed to get it right. So I don't know what makes them think that they're going to be able to do it right this time, especially if you've got an actor like Pedro Pascal in the cast, and his behavior when he's gone to Comic Cons and these events, you know, there's videos put up. You know, he's very handsy with his co-stars and stuff like this. And now apparently he suffers from anxiety, and he says that he needs to, you know, one of the actresses or something, you know, he asked if he gets it hold his hand and shit like that. But I don't know. I'm getting sick and tired of Pedro Pascal. He seems to be in fucking everything. You know, all I'm waiting for him now is to pop up as Popeye or fucking something now next. You know what I mean? It's getting that ridiculous. He's fucking everywhere. Like, you know, if he was a decent actor, you know, if he was actually a good actor, I wouldn't fucking mind. But he's fucking one-dimensional in everything that he's in. He doesn't have any charisma either. I don't get it with the whole Pedro Pascal thing. I think the Mandalorian role suited him because we didn't see his fucking face. But as soon as they fucking showed his face, kind of ruined that, didn't it? I mean, I tuned out. I never watched The Mandalorian to the end, you know. But he's fucking everywhere. Man, I'm just waiting on him now to show up. Oh, we're announcing Pedro Pascal as fucking Popeye the Sailor, man. Seriously, man. Fucking Pedro. Was there anything that you would like to, Jack, specifically talk about tonight while you're on here? I'll give you the opportunity to get something off your chest, I suppose, if there's something that's kind of rubbing you up the wrong way in the entertainment industry.
I suppose the big one is the upcoming Predator film and the absolutely abysmal design. It's just like just when I think, I mean, I hated Prey, and I stand by that. I just think the original Predator is a classic. The design was perfect, and the second film gets far too much hate. I really can't understand people.
I think the second movie is brilliant. The Danny Glover one? Yeah. The one where, that's a fucking deadly movie. No way, man. That movie is, I do agree with you, though. That is the perception. The first one always gets all the praise. The second one is kind of forgotten. But that second movie is actually very interesting. It's very good, it is, because it explores rituals and all of that other stuff. And it's actually a lot more deep than people realize, that movie. That second movie with Danny Glover, deadly, man. I love. I would prefer the second one over the first one, and I love the first one, but the second one, to me, I just love the second one.
Yeah, no, I've always liked
shocked Jack. I've shocked him. I've told him I like the second Predator movie over the first one. He's in shock.
No, I honestly, I think they both have merits. I like them both equally. I just think, for me, the makeup in the first film, I mean, it was by I think it was it Tom Savini or Stan Winston? I think it was Stan Winston, makeup legend. And you got something in 1987 that looks like a real creature. It looks like it's flesh, organic, and then you got something in the bloody 2022 or whenever it was that looks like it's CGI or rubber. And I just, Predators was okay. I didn't like the idea of there being elite predators that hunt the ones that we know and love. It just feels like a middle finger once again, like our predators are better than yours. Then The Predator, which was an absolute joke, just awful film. It's basically autism versus Predator. It's an absolute joke. And then Prey, I hated the design, and now this new Predator film, I just thought, I'm not going to lie, in the trailer, I just thought it was some black fella, and then I got a side glimpse, and I was like, wait, is that what? And then he turns around, and I'm just like, no, I can't do this anymore. I just, there is nothing wrong with that original design. Why they can't just do that again? And as I say, I collect the action figures. NECA have done some brilliant variations and designs, not just from the films, but their stuff that they've come up with. And it's just, Hollywood just they just feel this need to change things that don't need to be changed.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not a fan of any of the Predator movies that came after the second one anyway. That's a given. I've watched them, but not a fan. Got to be honest, I can't be arsed. That's deadly, man. Hold on, I'll remove me so we can see this big. Man, the detail on them is very, very good, I have to say. But what do you? I suppose I'll have to ask you this, because obviously, if you're a Predator fan, most of the time you're a Predator fan, you're also an Alien fan. There seems to be a weird connection there between the two. But I remember, a fan of both. But I have to ask you about this Alien Earth thing. show that's going to be on FX. Do you hold any hopes out for that show? Do you think they might finally respect this iconic character, if you want to call it as such? Because let's be honest, since Ridley Scott has come back to the Alien franchise, it hasn't lived up to expectations, to say the least. Now, I think he's executive producer on this Alien Earth thing, or whatever it's fucking called, I forget. See, this is what I mean. There's not even that much hype for it. But I've seen the trailer for it, and I have to say, for the first time watching a trailer featuring an alien, I actually felt something positive for a change. But at the same time, I'm very wary because I know how quickly things can go out of kilter with these kind of things. Is this a show that you're looking forward to watching, or is this another thing that you're dreading because you know they're going to mess it up?
Well, it's another thing that I'm dreading at this point. I know PD's happy because they've gotten the pulse rifles right. I'm sure that Disney will do what Disney does. It'll throw all these things at you like, oh, remember this, member. I mean, in Alien Covenant, they got the aesthetics of the ships, perfect, that wonderful retro sci-fi 70s computers with all these lights, They did a good effort with the Giga design, but they still got it wrong because they gave it the bug-like insect legs when Giga's original creature stood on two legs. It had hands. It's meant to be a sexual parody of the human structure. It's more than just a bug that runs around hissing. It's a very, very, very terrifying creature, and I don't think James Cameron or anyone has ever understood what Giga's creature was supposed to be. And I'm a huge advocate for the original alien creature. These aliens, I don't know what they're going to be like, but I'm sure they'll follow the models of later ones where they're just bugs running around and you'll have people blasting weapons and acid going everywhere and a nice political lecture in there for good measure because it's Disney. I'm open to being pleasantly surprised, and I'm sure I will give it I will give it a go. I don't see why not. This new Predator thing, absolutely not.
Absolutely have to give it a go. But with Alien, we kind of, I don't know what it is with Alien, but you kind of have to give this a go. Because as someone has said in the chat there, I mean, the trailers haven't been bad. It does look promising with the trailers that they have released. But there's always that doubt in the back of your head, as you said, Jack, because it is Disney, and Ridley Scott as well. I don't think he's doing himself any favors.
Well, first of all, Alien is Dan O'Bannon's script. Ridley Scott was chosen as a director. People seem to hailed him as the god of Alien when it was Dan O'Bannon's idea. It was Dan O'Bannon's script. Ridley was chosen as a director. He seemed far more interested in the whole cyborg, human, artificial intelligence, which is why the character Ash, the android, was added in by Ridley. He wasn't in the original script. In Alien, I think he works, but obviously in Prometheus and then Alien Covenant, the aliens just kind of got sidelined and we got far more interested into this, AI taking over from humanity and just all this crap. We want aliens, we want death, we want aliens, and for this absolute hack to come out in an article and say, I think I've given as much as I can give to the Alien franchise. Like, you're joking, right? It's like, I think you gave everything in the first film and you should never have had. And the frustrating thing is if you do your research and you see what we were going to get, what was going to be Alien 5, it was going to be a direct sequel to Aliens, and they were going to bring back Sigourney Weaver and Hicks and Newt and do a whole. And instead, Ridley stepped in, and look what we got instead. It just breaks my heart just thinking about that. So You know, I think Ridley has just fallen off a cliff at some point. You know, his ego got too big for him, and now I'm sorry, Ridley, but I don't think you ever understood Dan O'Bannon's script, and I don't think you ever fully understood Giger's creation. Quite honestly, you made a great film back in 1979, but you clearly didn't know much about it, as proven by your later work. And of course, in Covenant, he couldn't help himself. He just had to put the black goo in there and some bloody engineer cringe-looking thing, because in every Alien film, there has to be a new breed. It's just like Predator. In every Alien film, there has to be a new type. You can't just rely on what's already there.
I'd have to agree with that. I think Covenant is an abomination. I absolutely fucking hate that movie. And now, don't get me wrong, Prometheus has a lot of flaws, but I'd sit down and watch that. It's visually stunning as well. Maybe I am being fooled by the visuals, but I do actually enjoy. I don't know what it is. I do like the characters. I do actually enjoy that movie, but the end and the twist at the end is just fucking stupid. I mean,
no, I don't mind Prometheus as being its own thing in the Alien universe. But
yeah,
when you take that story and you put Alien in the title, people expect that they're going to see an Alien film, not a film that just so happens to feature some very bad CGI aliens in it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Someone said there in the chat as well, which I have to agree with. The director's cut of Alien 3 is much better version than the chopped cinema released. I agree with you. It's a much better movie to actually watch. It's far more enjoyable. Some of I mean, the scene, when the alien bursts out of the animal. There's an extended version of that, which is very fucking good. Like that third movie, yeah, the cinema release is shite. The director's cut version of it, Dave Fincher's cut of it, is actually decent enough. I mean, it's better than Resurrection. Resurrection's a fucking abomination. But I'd still watch that. You see, this is the thing. I know it's an abomination, but I'll still watch it because it's part of the Alien franchise, I suppose. But you'll never beat the first movie. I mean, the second movie, it you know, as I said, it is good. Second movie is great movie, man. But it's slightly different genre from the first one.
It's a great film. It's
more action based.
It's a great film, but I'm very annoyed at Cameron because when Giger naturally wanted to come back and continue on his creature, James Cameron told him no because he wanted to go his own way with his own vision. Typical hippie, egotistical twat, you know, and so Giger wasn't involved in Aliens, and I think it shows because Giger didn't like the idea of a queen, because in the first Alien film, the as what's called the big chap it actually reproduces by turning its victims into eggs, and there's a deleted scene where you can see Brett's dead body just almost completely turned into an egg, and you can see Dallas starting to turn into an egg. And it's a really grim thing.
That's right. I saw that scene only a few years back. Someone actually does a channel on YouTube that does the whole Alien franchise, breaks it all down and talks about
Alien theory.
Yeah, and breaks down these scenes as well. But I remember seeing that scene, and that was a fucking fascinating scene that they left out. It actually explained more of the process, as you were talking about, of how the alien comes about, and they left that out, and that's a big part of the law.
That's very terrifying. It's very terrifying to think, because when they find that spaceship, you think, oh well, a queen must have been there, when actually it's far more terrifying to think, were all those eggs the crew at one point?
Exactly, man. And that would make it more terrifying. Look, I do like Aliens. I do like James Cameron's movie, but I do agree with you in terms of comparing it to the first one and what the first one tried to achieve. Obviously, James Cameron, you're right, it was a different vision altogether. But look, that first movie, I said it. only yesterday, wasn't it, or the other day, whenever I said it, I said that Alien to me is the best science fiction horror movie ever made. Like, it is the top tier. It's the pinnacle.
me,
It's the template for science fiction horror.
for
Right?
me, if you were to say like what is the best of sci-fi, I always say
His
Alien
was slightly
1979.
So yeah, I just hope this new show does it justice. But you know, as you said yourself, we've got to kind of be cautious here because we've been burnt so many times before. And again, though, you know, when you see them kind of going back to things that were successful before, like the Alien franchise, like the Predator franchise, they're doing it with other franchises as well. To me, it just shows that the industry as a whole is creatively bankrupt. There's no new ideas. You know, they're going back to things that worked before, and then they're giving us shitty versions. Then, you know, they're diluted versions of what we grew up with, and it's just, look, people are seeing through, thankfully, and people are starting to be a bit more vocal. Because I remember when we started our journey, you know, people were afraid to speak up. You know, you had your neurotics and your doomcocks and all of those, but you know, there's a lot more streamers today than there was when we started off talking pop culture and calling all of this out. And it's just, when I see it now, I said it I think it was 2 years ago, that we were entering the era of remakes and reboots. And we're kind of 2 years in, and we're still doing reboots and remakes and pointless sequels as well. I know, like, Tom Cruise came back and did Maverick, the Top Gun sequel, and that did well. Just because that did well doesn't mean that everybody now should be jumping on the sequel train. Like, you know, we're getting a Spaceballs too. I mean, why? Why? The first movie is not actually that. I mean, as I said, that comedy kind of doesn't do it for me. You know, I can understand why people love Spaceballs, and it's become a cultural thing. But for me, it's. I'm sorry, but I think it's fucking stupid. So why it's getting a sequel after all this time? How many years is it now as well? 20 odd years or whatever it is since the last one. Like, who thinks it's a good idea to do a sequel? This is why James Cameron's Avatar, in my opinion, didn't get the hype that he tried to build for when he brought it back, because it was too fucking long between the first and the second fucking movie. Like, do you know what I mean? You know, sometimes you have to hit while the iron is still fucking hot. Not fucking let it cool down and wait fucking a decade and then, oh, I'm gonna do a second movie. The arrogance of it, though. That's what shows me.
Yeah,
Arrogance of it. Well, the arrogance. I fucking hate those. I hate that movie, man. If my man dad loved that movie.
Just to go back to Alien real quick, because with what PD's put in the chat there, Lambert was actually trans, and a lot of things. So a theory that is sort of held is that the xenomorph wanted, well, no, the big chap, because it wasn't called a xenomorph till Aliens, wanted to let's just say reproduce with her, and this scene is. Most of it you don't see, probably for the best, but you can hear her screaming and making funny noises on the radio while Ripley's running towards her. And then when she comes across her body, hardly anyone notices this, but she's hanging from the ceiling with no clothes on. And you just kind of think, well, what? So for something that just devolved into this bug-like creature, it seems to understand a lot about how to, do some business. But of course, Lambert was trans. So the theory is that when the xenomorph went to impregnate her, it discovered, oh, someone's not fully thing here. and that's why it it didn't end well. Let's put it that way. But it just goes to show you the real horror that was put into this creature, and it's just been gradually sort of eroded away over time. And it's just such a shame to see that.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting that you say that. I didn't know that Lambert was trans, but yeah, I did know about the whole kind of what Geiger or Giger, whatever his name is, vision was, because obviously I watched that channel and it was very interesting. There's a lot more to the so-called xenomorph, if it's not obviously, well, look, as you said,
we all know what the head is.
Hmm.
I mean, if you look at Giger's artwork and you see a lot that creature is straight from his book, and once again, and I wish this was a joke, but in Aliens, originally the xenomorphs were going to have domes, but then the production designer or one of the prop makers said, this is too much hassle, can we just change the design? And they were like, sure. And it's like, you just because you couldn't be bothered to fully stay true to it because it was causing a few production issues. It just goes to show you, it's like when they brought Giger onto the set, to design this creature, he put everything into it. And one thing I will give Ridley props for is he fully supported Giger's vision. He specifically chose him. So I suppose, we can thank him for that. But, I just like this arrogance of, oh no, it's going to look like this now because we think it looks better. It's like, well, no, I think, if you're truly an Alien fan, you want to honor Giger's work and you want to keep it as true to it as how it was, And I think there's a real horror to the creature that has just never been seen since. Now it's just something that hisses and that you shoot at, even though it has acid blood, which doesn't seem to affect 90% of people when they shoot at it.
Yeah, when you put it that way now, it does seem the alien seems kind of fucking pointless now.
Well, because, in the first film, keep in mind, all they did was cut the knuckle of the facehugger and the acid ate through 3 decks. In Aliens, they shoot them up, relentlessly, and only 1 or 2 people actually get affected by the acid.
Yeah, that's true. Hicks is one of those people.
Yeah, like I say, Aliens is a great film. I am a big fan of a lot of Cameron's work, but I just over the years, Aliens was my favorite film as a kid. Was my favorite of the films, but as I've gotten older, Aliens slowly. I think it is the only film out of all the films I've seen where no matter how much I think, oh, I hope I enjoy it. I hope watching it again won't ruin it for me. I enjoy it more and more every time I watch it, and I can't say that about a lot of films.
Do you think, I'll ask you this question, obviously we're talking about, the whole sexual aspect of it and all of this and stuff. Do you think though, when they approached James Cameron to do the second movie, that was maybe a thing that they were conscious about, and this is why they brought in Cameron and this is why he refused to bring your man back, because they didn't kind of want to go down that route and explore any further. So this is why we got Aliens, and we ended up going in the direction that we ended up going in with it.
That is a possibility, but if that is the truth, I think it's incredibly disrespectful that you still used a lot of Giger's visuals, especially with LV-426, the ship. And it's like saying, oh, we don't agree with your vision, but we're going to use your artwork anyway for inspiration. And there was also the scene with the facehuggers in the jar, trying anything to get through the glass, and they did make that little joke, oh, love at first sight. So I think it was definitely still there, but it was greatly toned down. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that there was now a child in the film, which I fully understand.
Yeah,
obviously, when you've got a cast of nothing but adults, you can do things. I understand why maybe Cameron wanted to move away from that, but I don't think you had to compromise the look of the creature. You know, maybe just don't have a scene as grim as the first film. You know.
No, I get what you're saying. I will say I actually do prefer the design of the alien in obviously in the first movie, because as you said yourself, it was so basic though as well. Like,
well, it's as I said, they inherit the characteristics of
you know,
their
I had the
hosts,
two legs.
and the Giga in the first Alien film, on set it was referred to as the big chap, but in the film there's a deleted scene where it's actually referred to as Kane's son, because it doesn't have a name. Xenomorph was what the Colonial Marines came up for it in the second film, but in the first film it was it was just referred to as Kane's son, and it seems to be a sort of twisted almost parody of a human being, you know, and it's like it took a human being and twisted it into something mechanical and alien, and that's what I think is so important, which is why in Alien 3 the dog alien runs on four legs and is, you know, is much more animal like because it came from an animal. That makes complete sense. So why in future Alien films do aliens look more like insects if they're coming from humans? You know, why do they run like animals for?
Yeah, I do love that scene in Dave Fincher's in Alien when the xenomorph, if you want to call, we'll call it the big chap now, comes out of the dog, and it does mimic. You're absolutely right. It does mimic, because it's a deadly little scene, because the camera just panning, you see the thing running off, and it looks deadly. But I do agree with you now that we're having this conversation. I mean, I still, as I said, I think we're both saying we do like this, we do like aliens, but it's just you're talking about we could have went in a different direction with this franchise, which would have been a lot more interesting than what we've got now.
And I still think you can. I still think you can do a sequel to Alien, or start Alien again, but explore the more Giga vision than the Cameron vision. I'm not saying you can't have those other films in the same universe, but I'm saying I still think we can go down that original way, but I don't think anyone's going to do it. One, because of the times we're living in. Two, because, oh, Aliens, it seems to be the most popular, so we're just going to base everything off that. You know, it
is actually a pity, because, you know, let's be honest, the acting that they've brought out in relation to Alien over the years has been actually, you know, really poor. And it would be nice. Look, I don't know what the starting point off would be for you, where they could continue the story maybe after the first movie, and then
maybe
I don't know, as you said,
maybe before, because we never found out what happened on LV-426. You know, I mean, or maybe who's to say they're the only ship that the who's to say that I'm after forgetting the name of the ship now from the first film. What is it?
Nostromo.
Who's to say the Nostromo was the only ship that picked up that distress signal? Who's to say that Kane was the only one who got infected with an egg? I mean, there's a lot of eggs there. Why not? I mean, I know the trouble is they seem to be repeating the same formula. You know, ship lands on the planet, they get a parasite, they fly off, it kills them all. You know, it would be nice to see something different. Maybe in this film they actually keep him frozen, which Ripley was, of course, saying, why don't you freeze him? If everyone had just listened to Ripley, they'd have all lived. You know, maybe they get the specimen back to civilization, and then, you know, you get to see a true horror of a big chap not only harvesting humans, but actually creating more than one of them. I mean, I don't know if this is the direction Alien Earth is going in, but like I say, I don't think it's going to be the fan dream that I and a lot of other people want.
Me about Alien is the fact, obviously, they pick up this signal, right? They go there, they find the ship. the ship being there has been the fascinating thing for me. How did it get there? Now, I know in Prometheus, but it was a different fucking planet. But like that. But that's what I would love them to explore. You know, how did the ship get there in the first place? I would love them to explore that side of it rather than maybe exploring, you know, because we've done obviously alien into the big chap and do something there. But I'd like to know where the origins of the ship came from, how it came to be on that planet. Did it crash? Was it shot down? What happened? You know?
Well, I think what we can't ignore is that the alien do bear a similar look to the jockey that was in the chair and the ship itself. And in Giger's artwork, the creature is biomechanical, which is almost as if it's organic machinery. It's like it's come from the ship itself. Could it have been a ship malfunction that caused an infection to break out? You know, could the creature, which I'll call it as, you know, could it be more a part of the ship instead of an outside parasite that got on board? Because it seems to look an awful lot like the ship.
I agree with you. Even the way the ship is structured, it does look like it's like...
It's because it was all sculpted by Giger, and it has the bones, it has the wire, the sort of all the patterns that you can see on the big chap's body. And, you know, it could have been a thing where, I mean, the space jockey's chest broke open like everyone else's. Maybe him being attached to the ship for too long caused the ship to grow out of him into its own creature.
Or maybe the mother ship is a mother ship because, you know, biomechanical, whatever, you know, because we even seen it in Aliens when they enter the part where all the aliens are. It seems to be taken over by all of the crap that's on the walls and the ceilings and stuff like that.
Yeah, which looked exactly like the corridors in the ship in the first film. So I say that those ships aren't built, they're grown.
See, that would make sense. That would make a perfect sense, actually.
And perhaps, our Noel brainstorm, perhaps how they're grown is by a multitude of organisms coming together to form one big organism, and how they spread is they infect other beings, grow out of them, and then sort of merge everything together and become another ship. Maybe it could be some mass production line that went wrong and is now spreading like an infection throughout the whole galaxy. See, Hollywood, hire me.
Ship was ancient. Yeah, that's what it's so... You know, it could be thousands of years old or even millions of years old or whatever.
Remember this, Noel, there was a layer of mist over the eggs that when it reacted to someone falling in, triggered one of the eggs to hatch. Now, why would that happen? What if the ship was just waiting patiently?
That's right, because it was only one egg that opened.
Yeah, it's like there was only one person.
Yeah. Actually, now that we're talking about it, this is all starting to make fun. Yeah. Here, Hollywood. We're looking for a job. Even early days would be anything that your DEI hires will come up with.
No, someone will just listen to this stream and just steal the idea. If
go ahead.
Anything to go by.
Go ahead, so I can sue. Me and Jack can sue you then, and then like we'll buy out the Alien franchise. Then I'll hand it to Jack, and then Jack can do whatever the fuck he wants with it, because I know he'll do a good job.
That's it. We'll be based in Dublin.
Yeah, I could never understood that decision, PD. I mean,
yeah, it just made like why you had the perfect setup.
And I know.
You just chose to mess around with it.
That would have explained how they found the ship and all in Alien. Like it was perfect, except for the twist. Like it would have been perfect, but no. He just had to be. Listen, Ridley Scott has brought back Gladiator as well. That movie, the second movie, flopped. Right, I said this last year. I think it was early last year when I was talking about Ridley Scott, or it could have been the year before. I can't really remember, but I do remember saying this, that Ridley Scott was one of those directors that can't let go of his past and is trying to relive past glories. But what he doesn't understand is that he just doesn't have it anymore. And that's not a bad reflection on him, right? It's just sometimes, you know, you get to a certain point in your career where your creativity stagnates. And that it happens with everybody, right? It does happen, right? But there's no shame in that. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to let go. And I think that's what we're seeing here with Ridley Scott. He won't let go, and he needs to let go. He needs, listen, Alien needs what Doctor Who needs. Right? You spoke about that fifth movie, right? The movie that we should have got, right? Ridley, obviously, Ripley was going to come back. Newt was going to return, and of course, Hicks. And we were going to get, obviously, as you said, a continuation of that. And we saw the artwork and the director that was willing to do this. And of course, as you said, Ridley was saying, no way, it's mine. I'll do whatever the fuck I want, and kind of pushed him. That's I would have been happy with that, Jack. That movie. Because, you know, I think for Alien fan, we have been craving a decent movie. And this would have been the perfect comeback to then, after this movie, could have been the starting point. Movie could have been the starting point to refreshen this franchise all over again. And maybe, you know, as you said, you know, honoring the original, you know, concept and the original ideas for this. And again, as you said, you know, we're in 2025. Could you do it in these times? You know what? I think that's what the problem is with the industry. They're just too bothered about who's going to react. Listen, the bottom line is the fans that you have to please are the Alien fans, right? First and foremost. And if you can win them over, fuck what anybody else says. You'll have a hit on your hands and then make more movies, make more money. Fans will keep lapping it up. I don't get the mentality of Hollywood today.
I've never understood it. I mean, like, you know, you make a good product, it sells, you make more money. You know,
yeah.
I don't know how it's this hard to understand.
And you know what? I know we got shit over the last few years, Jack, but as you said yourself, I mean, they could still resurrect Alien. You could still honor this franchise. You could still make money off this franchise. It's just, I've never, like yourself, I don't understand this mentality. Like, how many years now have Disney and all these other big studios lost money? I mean, how much more money can they lose?
Well, when Disney bought 20th Century Fox, I knew it was over for Alien and Predator, and I think this is what we're seeing now. You know, just endless rehashes, endless films with no thought put into them. You know, change the design for the sake of it, and I think this is only going to get worse. Maybe Alien Earth will be like lightning in a bottle. It might be a good thing, but you know what? If it is genuinely good, it won't last long. They'll find some reason to get rid of it.
No, because what they'll do is, right, if it's successful, what will happen is then they'll get all giddy, right, all of a sudden, and then they'll probably start thinking of doing more movies, and then just throw them out and hoping that fans will lap them up. We're getting sick and tired of it now. I mean, you know, it's another franchise, just like the Predator franchise. We've been talking about a lot of franchises today. It's and popular ones as well. and ones that made money in the past. It's just actually sad when you see it, that it just seems to be no. As I said, you know, bringing all these things back to me proves that they're all creatively bankrupt. I wouldn't mind if they were something new with them. Whereas you said yourself, Jack, it's the same tired tropes done over and over again. And as you said, there's always this aim and this goal to redesign or to do something different to try and stand out. But what they don't realize is that half of the time when you make those creative decisions, you're actually, you know, you're actually turning off your fan base, your audience.
Well, I think it just shows, and I think this is the case with Doctor Who, that the people making this stuff aren't fans. Because as a fan myself, I want to add and create onto what is already there. But these people, it's like, oh, how can we change this? And it's like with Russell, with Doctor Who, like, it's all about change. It's like, well, you're clearly not a fan then. Because I liked Alien as it was. I liked Doctor Who as it was. But it's like, no, you have to change it for reasons.
I just, it's like, I don't even look forward to watching TV. And, you know, as I said, you know, I just don't bother, man. It's just something that I remember sitting around with the family all the time, especially the weekends, every Saturdays, every Saturday and Sunday nights. Sunday nights you'd have your game shows and all of that other shit, but you were entertaining. But like, I'm just watching. Look, for example, right? I watched Sylvester Stallone the other night. Not the movie that you think I watched, like Rocky or Rambo or any of those ones. But I watched a movie of his that I haven't seen in a long, long time called Lock Up. Right? Where he's a warden of this maximum security prison, and he has a past with this fella because the Sylvester Stallone's character, because he was the only one to break out of the prison that he was in. Now he's in prison, but he's in a light security prison, and he gets a temporary release, right? So the whole film starts off with him, you know, meeting up with his missus, you know, them fooling around, and then by the end of that scene, then he's back in prison, and then in the middle of the night, like, the premise is absolutely shite. By the way, the premise is unbelievable, because there's no way that a prisoner that's in minimum security that hasn't committed a major crime would be transferred into a maximum security prison because the warden doesn't fucking like him, right? It wouldn't happen. But this is what happens in the movie. But I'm telling you now, man, it was on, what was it? I think it's an hour and a half, an hour and 40 odd minutes, whatever it is, right? It breezed through, and I had a laugh watching that movie. It's called Lock Up. Go and check it out. It's mad, right? The plot makes no sense, right? But back in those days, a lot of the movies didn't. I'm watching a lot of old movies, right? Last night I watched Armageddon, right? Armageddon. Remember that movie with Bruce Willis? It was a big
where they go to the asteroid.
Yeah. Everybody loved that movie at the time, right? It was a big major hit. Even the radio stations in Ireland were talking about, because the scene with Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck where he calls him son, apparently that was the scene that made most men cry in Ireland when they watched that movie. Yeah, that's how big it was, right? They were talking about. So I watched it last night. I was watching Father Ted, and I just got pissed off watching Father Ted. I don't know what it was. I just wasn't in the humour. So I just said, you know what? I want to watch a fucking disaster movie, right? So I don't that 2012. So I said, what will I watch? And it was between Deep Impact, but I'd watched Deep Impact about 6 months ago. So I fucking decided, you know what, on Armageddon, right? And I'm watching the movie. Now I'm still enjoying the movie, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying the movie. But the plot of this movie, right, I've just realized after all of this time, because it's been a long time since I've seen this movie, right? But the plot of this movie is so implausible, right? It's so stupid and corny that I can't believe that it became, well, I can, because the characters you actually invested in, and it was a fun movie, okay? But the plot was absolutely ridiculous, right? So they had 13 days to save the Earth when they realized there was a big asteroid coming towards them. So NASA's solution was to go and get the best deep sea drillers on planet Earth, right? Which happened to be Bruce Willis and all of his band of merry men, right? So then Bruce Willis's character is like, so these are the cowboys that you're sending up to drill. Well, they know nothing about drilling. I want to go up with my own crew, blah, 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 right? Okay. So then all of a sudden they have these 2 rockets that they've been working on, but all of a sudden they're ready to launch, right? Blah, blah, blah. So they all get into the rocket, right? Then the first one ends up being taken out with Ben Affleck in it, but he manages to survive somehow, even though the rest of the crew is dead. There's Bear, and then there's the Russian fella, the cosmonaut that we picked up on the space station that just happened to blow fucking up, right? Now, I realised, right, because when I looked at the credits, Michael Bay was involved in this movie with Jerry Bruckheimer, so I understood why there was a lot of fucking action sequences in it. But the dumbest sequence in this whole movie, right, if you think that's all bad, right, the dumbest sequence in this whole movie was the part where Ben Affleck's character is in the fucking space car thing, right? The fucking the 6-wheel fucking tank thing, right? And they come towards this ridge on the asteroid. There happens to be a ridge on the asteroid, right? So he comes up with this mad plan that they're going to fucking jump the ridge in this fucking car by turning on thrusters. He goes outside and he's banging the ice off this thing while he's in our fucking space, right? While hanging on to a fucking bungee cord, if that's what you want to call it, right? He gets swung around, right? So somehow the thrusters come on and somehow it slows the thing down, right? But going out into outer space, but somehow when they put the thrusters on, right, even though the bottom thrusters, they're able to land down. So the space buggy thing does a couple of 360 turns because, you know, Michael Bay doesn't do that and like, but by half measures, he has to go all full out. So this thing is swinging around, right? Happens to land on the 6 wheels, right? The Russian cosmonaut is thrown fucking on the ground, right? He jumps up and he starts fucking giving it. I'm a real hero now, Russian astronaut, blah 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 blah. Right? While Ben Affleck's character pops his head out, right? Come on, Liam, we have to go, right? Everything just in this movie was over the top, the nuke going off, and then Bruce Willis's character choking a man with the fucking forceps, telling them to fucking knock it off. I'll get 800 feet. I've never missed the depth that I've right. This thing, but I was sitting there and I was enjoying. But telling you now, man, right? Just looking back at some of these movies as well, right? They were the dumbest plots, right? But the one thing that they had over the movies that we have today, right? They were over the top, but the characters were developed, right? And you actually identified with either several characters or one of the characters that was part of that crew. And when they genuinely start all getting killed off, like you do feel it. By the end of the movie, I just had a big smile on my face. But it's the dumbest movie. I'm not messing. Even Aerosmith's I don't want to close my eyes. It's just all so fucking dramatic. And it was just, it's one of those, it's just go in, have no expectations, big fucking bucket of popcorn, and sit there and just have a fucking good time. And I just miss, seriously though, it is, the special effects in it, I agree with you, PD. They are brilliant. And I think that's another thing that makes this movie so good, even though the plot makes absolutely no sense. Even the NASA stuff, when you look at it and analyze it, makes no fucking sense in any science journal. It's just fucking, but it's brilliant. It had Bruce Willis, Billy Bob Thornton, you know, I had Aerosmith's daughter, fucking Ben Affleck, you know, Owen Wilson. I forget the Russian actor, but he's deadly. He's in a lot of movies. He was in Godzilla, the version that everybody fucking hates. Oh no, that wasn't him. That's the other fucking French fella. But he's brilliant, man. Your man is fucking brilliant, and it just an all-star cast. But the movie was just fun, but the plot was absolutely fucking ridiculous. I swear, man, I had a big smile on my face after I watched it, and I really genuinely had fun. But the thing about it is, what I do today is entertain, and genuinely, even at the end where they're doing the wedding scene, you see all their pictures, their posters, and all of that, man. Like, it's deadly. It's all over the top. It is. Even the romance, it's all over the top, but it's just the right kind of over the top. It's that little bit, you know, they say you need a little bit of sweet in your life. That's what that movie was, and it's just deadly. It is, man. Brilliant, man.
And the trouble is, I think the past decade has made everyone so overly cynical and critical, and I think sometimes it's very easy to forget that, you know, it's just a film. You're there to enjoy yourself. You know, it doesn't have to have a bloody Shakespeare level of poetry or a plot that has the advancements of, you know, the science and all the stuff. It can just be a fun piece of escapism. But I think because of all the crap we've had to endure, we've all become so overly analytical, and I think it's ruined a lot of older stuff for us. I think that's where I've kind of been with some of films I used to really enjoy, you know, which is a real shame.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're still not making good movies. There's been a few movies that they've brought out that have been enjoyable. But
perfect example, Noel. Sorry, perfect example is, have you seen Bullet Train?
You're gonna hate me for this. I didn't like it. I swear, I watched it. I was actually looking forward to it because I was hearing good things about it, and I am a bit of a fan of Brad Pitt. I can't lie. So I went into this thinking, yeah, I'm going to. This is probably going to be a good movie because it's Brad Pitt. I'm being honest with you, Jack. I just found it boring.
No, that's fair enough. But maybe it's because I went in with no expectations at all, and I just found myself. It was so. I mean, it's so ridiculous, you know, especially like the train crash, and it's so Michael Bay and over the top, and even some of the CGI is bad. But I don't know what it was. I just had a load of fun, and it's on sale. It seems to be like a bargain bin film now, but I think it's worth the pickup. But, you know, I understand. Dr. Rick Douglas, MD, says that horror movies peak at the moment. There are some good ones, definitely, but there's also quite a sea of bad ones. But I will say, Smile, you know, horror films don't usually scare me, but I will say the Smile films, they are ones that actually do scare me, like get my blood going. So yeah, that they're really good. There's a horror film called Thanksgiving. I thought that was a pretty good one. Also, I think it was Swedish. There's a foreign film called the Conference. That's a pretty good one. Can't find it anywhere on Blu-ray, but I think it might be on Netflix. But that was a really good horror film. It's your standard, you know, there's a guy in a mask and he's hunting people. It seems to be a very, you know, overused formula. But yeah, no, there are some pretty good horror films out there at the moment. That seems to be a thing that is growing, because, you know, it's especially with independent films. I find that a lot of horrors now are independent made. They're not part of the Hollywood machine.
Yeah, it's just actually talking about horror, which is very interesting. Obviously, there was the recent news of the acquisition of the Saw franchise. from it's gone to Bloomhouse now.
Oh God, no,
Yeah,
no,
it's
oh
official. It's official and all. It's already been announced.
no.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I could
I
tell
know.
by
I'm
I was
sorry.
after what your thoughts were on that, but I could tell by your reaction.
Oh, I hate Bloomhouse. They've ruined Halloween. Their horror films are awful. I'm sorry that they're awful, and
Well,
it's
the
just
original director, if I told you that the original director is coming back with that, easier.
okay, okay. But because I really enjoyed Saw X, actually, I thought some of the later sequels kind of fell off big time, but Saw X really brought it back to form for me. I never watched that Spiral thing yet. I might have to get onto that, but no. If the original director's coming back, that's fine. But Blumhouse, like, oh my god, they are just. As soon as you hear that name or see that logo, I'm like, no, I'm not watching that.
Well,
Especially after Halloween ends.
I told I told Ballstreck, and his response, I tagged him in it, and his response was also another thing now they can inject their woke into. So he's not holding out any hopes either, which is kind of, because look, emotionally, that scene at the end, pardon the pun, but I can't hack that scene. And I love me horror, but I've said this before. That scene has always made me very, very uncomfortable for some weird reasons. All the other shit that goes on in it is fine for me until it gets to that last scene, and my stomach just can't. I don't know what it is, but seeing someone hacking off their ankle is not something that
Yeah, I
I
think
thought. I swear
I
to
think it's
God.
I think it's the noise, the
Yeah,
noise cutting through the bone. I think they
yeah.
get. If there's one thing there's a few areas I can't stand, and that's teeth, eyes, and the groin area.
Oh
And
yeah,
whenever a horror film goes there, and of course there are a lot of Saw films that do go there,
yeah,
and I can't, because you ever get that horrible dream where your teeth get knocked out?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
I just can't.
yeah. That franchise does makes me a bit uncomfortable, but I did the first movie was peak. I've always been indifferent about the sequels, to be quite honest with you. But again, I kind of fell out of that franchise. So, but when I did see the news, I was kind of like, all right, someone else is taking it on board now. Maybe we will get something interesting and different. But I do agree with you. I mean, it's probably in the wrong hands. But when I heard the original director was coming back and was very keen to get working on it again, because like he put out a statement as well saying he was glad to be back. So it's official.
It was frustrating because when he left originally, it was very much a closed book, and then they started doing this whole copycat killer thing. But then when they went into sort of prequel territory and they were able to bring John Kramer back, I did think it kind of returned to form a bit. And I think Saw X is very underrated. I think that's another one that's gone into the bargain bin. I think it deserves a lot more love, that film.
Actually, it's funny that you say that, because I did actually see that movie in the bargain bin here in Dublin.
Well, I'd say pick it up, Noel. It's you might get a bit. I'm not sure if you have to necessarily watch all the sequels to understand it. I mean, if you understand the basic story of John Kramer, I think it's very self-contained, which is what's good about it. And it's got all that wonderful Saw stuff. It has a
Yeah,
great twist in it, though. Which I won't spoil, that even caught me off, because I think the Saw films got a bit sort of gimmicky. That you put some filters and just flash a load of images on the screen and it makes a story kind of thing. But this one really did get me going, wow. So that's it's really good, and I love Billy the puppet. He's the best.
see, here's the thing. I'm going to say something controversial here. But for me, that franchise should never have been a franchise. I think the first movie there was enough there.
Yeah,
Maybe I don't think you needed to explore it any
no, I get
further.
it. I get it.
But you know, look, they're all. I mean, look, the first movie did well. I mean, it did very well. But
Yeah, I do agree with that, Dr. Rick, actually. I mean, considering how many films there are, it's quite rare. I mean, if you look at the Hellraiser franchise, that they tell you to stop after the fourth film, which is what I've done. But with Saw, considering there's 10 films and, well, 9 films in a series, I think they do keep it pretty consistent for how much there is, compared to a lot of other horror franchises. I mean, you know, even Nightmare on Elm Street and the Friday series have their extreme duds.
it's off, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'm a huge fan of Nightmare Now. I love Krueger, like, and I've sat down and watched all of those movies. But yeah, I will agree. I will agree. You can see that the quality kind of does as you keep going on with those movies. It does, and that rebooted version was absolute. Look, I went into that rebooted version not expecting much after I had seen photographs of the redesign of Freddy's face, and the fact that it didn't have Robert in the role was another red flag for me. But I still went in thinking, okay, I'll give it a go because I do like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, no, I do.
Did you know that?
TARDIS time. I did go to the Saw ride at Thorpe Park, and I was 11, and you're making me feel really old now. So that was like a lifetime ago, but it was fun, and I still have the trophy. Congratulations, you've survived. And also, yeah, no Robert Englund, no Nightmare on Elm Street. Robert Englund is Freddy Krueger. I think if you're going to do some recasting there, it's got to be masterclass, you know. And I don't remember the reboot at all, to tell you the truth.
Pedro Pascal would be great for Freddy Krueger. Think
In
about
more
it.
ways than one, I suppose.
Yes. But no, honestly, look, I went into that reboot, you know, just thinking I'll give it a go. The one thing that I came for, I did love that they in that movie they did expand the story a little bit. The one thing about it was though it was just awful trash, and it was. That's the one thing. Like, I never found Nightmare on Elm Street, the original, boring, but this remake or reboot, whatever you want to fucking call it, was boring, and no wonder it didn't get any fucking sequels after the fact, because it was absolutely terrible.
I thought the Friday
But there
and the
was some
Halloween.
elements of it.
I thought the Friday and the Halloween reboots were okay. Not great, but not particularly bad. But the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, yeah, I can't really say anything about it because I can't remember it.
It's awful. It actually is. You know, they've done some reboots, some have hit, and definitely a lot of them have missed. But you know, again, though, you know, when they go back to franchises that were successful before, you have to question why. You know, it's not what we want. We want you to keep moving and keep evolving and keep doing different things. We don't want to go back to our past or relive our past. You can continue the legacy of these things. You know, it's like we've heard the Goonies too is happening. Like, I mean, what's the point?
I know
What's the point? The first movie is a classic, right? Okay, and it is. Look, if people don't like the Goonies, that's fine. I think there's something wrong with you personally, but I love the Goonies movie, right? But I never wanted a sequel. If you were going to do a sequel, right, for me, it was the time after the first movie became a success. Then you do your sequel. You do it then. You don't do a sequel decades later. I don't think this is going to work, and I don't think it's going to be able to recapture. And that's what this is all about, trying to recapture a little bit of your childhood and stuff like this. You're not going to do it because it's going to be a hollow imitation or a hollow, cheap knockoff of what we've gotten before. Look what they did with Indiana Jones, for God's sake. Right?
Yeah.
mean, we have crystal skulls in that fucking entry, okay? But the Dial of fucking Destiny, right? Just fucking leave it out already, will you? And now there's talks of a reboot of the Indiana Jones franchise. Now they're thinking a reboot.
Yeah, I know who they'll cast.
Like someone said there, hold on, just one more thing. Someone said Robert England is Freddy Krueger. Absolutely right.
Yeah, his performance was just too good.
Who out there, actually, right, if we were to ask the question, who out there do you think actor-wise that we have right now that's out there, one of the big who would be able to take that role on and do it just like Harrison Ford did? Off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody. Right? And that's the issue that you have. So whoever you get is going to be is not going to live up to expectations. So why do it at all? You know, again, Disney, you know, latching on to another, you know, Lucas fucking franchise, Indiana, and fucking that up as well. Right? Nobody wants a reboot of Indiana. And he's tried it once before. This could do a young Indiana Jones.
Well,
but nobody wants Indiana Jones. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. Right? That's it. William Shatner is James T. Kirk. Right? They've gotten people to play James T. Kirk after that, but they're not James T. Kirk. He is. Leonard Nimoy is Spock. Right? There's just certain roles out there that were made, tailor-made for these actors and actresses, and they can't be replaced. I'm sorry, but they just can't. We were talking about Christopher Reeves earlier on. As I said, I like Henry as Superman, right? But he'll never replace the definitive Superman. And anybody that plays will never live. And that's what I mean. Henry never lived up to the expectation. Brandon Routh never lived up to the expectation. Anybody that's taken on the Superman mantle has not. It's just people and certain actresses that have played characters that they've grown up with, and to them, in their mind, they are those characters. You can't separate.
I think for me, Tobey Maguire is my Spider-Man. I think he's the closest they ever got. You know, he gets a lot of criticism, like he's too whiny or cry or awkward, clearly by fangirls who never understood the character. Because
that's what he's supposed to be, isn't he? He's a teenager.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but he's an outcast. You know, he's a loser. He's a beta male. He's a nerd. He's a geek who gets these superhuman powers, and all of a sudden the responsibility that's thrust onto him, and he has no choice but to listen to his uncle's wise words. You know, you have this power, but you've got to use it responsibly. And you see the things he does when he gets the black suit, and you know, he nearly goes off the rails and indulges in the power. It's really about a young man in becoming a grown man, and I think it's something that a lot of men, young men especially, go through, and it's why he was such a great character. But as Hollywood normally does, now he's super sexy. You know, I will say, at least he still had the hero's journey, but it just never quite felt as relatable as Maguire's did on a personal level.
No, look, I will honestly say that I preferred Andrew Garfield, right? But that's just a personal choice. But I will say, when the Tobey Maguire movies came out, I thought he was perfect casting, and he did have it down to a T. I actually love to me to watch them. I did love the Amazing Spider-Man. Obviously, the second one, I don't know what it is. It's either the second or the third Spider-Man movie they kind of come up a little bit.
I thought it was okay, but I just think that Sam Raimi had the best villains. Like, you had Willem Dafoe's Goblin and Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, and Sandman. I love Thomas Hayden Church's portrayal of him, and even Topher Grace's Venom. That Venom gets a lot of criticism, but I would take it to Tom Hardy's any day. It's aggressive, it's frightening, it's everything it's supposed to be. I will never understand the hatred towards Spider-Man 3, but I guess it's a generational thing. But the Amazing Spider-Man films just didn't hit for me, and to be honest, the Tom Holland ones didn't either. No Way Home was a nice bit of fan member berries, but honestly,
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to actually ask you about that because for me, the scene with them, the train together, I don't know what it was, but that did resonate with me emotionally, and I thought it was very well done. But I wanted to ask your thoughts on that whole movie and the kind of redemption arc for what's his face is Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Did you like that movie overall?
I did. I really enjoyed it when I went to the cinema. I like a lot of the things that they did with the characters. Some things I didn't like, but it's the whole multiverse thing and the whole just overgrandness of it. It just felt more like it was, the corporation dangling this in front of you and go jump on it. And I think a lot of us did. And when Tobey Maguire appeared, I just started applauding in the cinema. I was so happy because I stayed off the internet prior to the film coming out because I didn't want anyone to spoil it. And I was so happy. But I will admit, the more I've watched the film, in my spare time, I'm liking it. I'm liking it less and less every time I watch it, because I'm just starting to see the cracks now. I'm like, oh yeah, for me, I'm happy with the Maguire trilogy until they decide to do a Spider-Man that isn't in the MCU with the proper villains, the proper suit, and the proper setting. None of this Miles Morales bollocks, none of this Spider-Gwen, just, Peter Parker, great villains, great characters, then I'm happy with the Maguire trilogy. That's how I feel about it.
Someone just said there, Maguire's era was the best of Marvel. After Iron Man, it was downhill. I mean, look, the first Iron Man movie was great.
It's a classic.
Yeah, the second and third, I don't mind the third one as much, but the second one I hated with a passion. I didn't like the second one. I don't know. I kind of get bored.
I will say, like, Captain America: First Avenger is also a classic.
Oh, look, I watched that as well recently. Okay, I was blown away about how good that first Captain America movie was. If they had maintained that level of creativity and that level of writing and character development, we could have got something really fucking amazing with the whole franchise. But we saw what we got then in the end. It just got ridiculous, didn't it? But I do love that first movie, and I will always go. I watch my favorite movies out of that whole thing now. I don't watch them in order. I'll just, whatever I feel in New York watching, I'll watch my favorite movies from it. But look, I'm kind of getting sick of the MCU, and I'm kind of sick of DC as well.
I thought Phase 1, because you can buy them in box sets, so I thought Phase 1 is pretty solid as a whole. You got Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and that leads up to the first Avengers Assemble. That's great.
Yeah.
I think they should have stopped after that. I don't think they should have, like, when they started going into space and alternate realities and things, that's when it got ridiculous.
No,
You know,
I
I think
agree with you.
Avengers was a nice idea, but they should have left it at that. They shouldn't have kept going as long as it did.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I mean, I think the first phase was pretty good. And then after that, then the quality just fucking dipped because, as you said, then they went into all of this bullshit with multiverse. And then, you know, RTD has fucking tried it as well with Doctor. I mean, nobody wants that shit, man.
No,
You know,
no.
like,
The thing that
I'm actually
made
bored out with all of these DC and MCU shit now. To be quite honest with you, I'd
yeah.
rather the thing just went away for a few years, but they won't do that. They're sticking around.
The thing
And the
that
thing is,
made Doctor Who so unique was that it wasn't like those things. It was much more accessible. So what does RTD do? Being the fake fan he is, let's make it like everything it shouldn't be, you know. And that's just why I'm so done. But also, you make it badly like those things, you know, and those things are bad. But my God, RTD, you've set the standard for the new low.
you know, we were sitting here, Jack Lee's been on the channel. We've had many guests on here over the years, over the Chibnall era, and we were saying he was the worst thing to happen to Doctor Who, and he'd never be forgiven. And I'm not saying I would forgive him, never forgive him, but the thing about it is now, when I look now and I analyze everything, you know, the one thing I would say about Chibs is that, yeah, he did try something different. It didn't work, but he did try. Like, that's the thing. He just wasn't good enough. You know, RTD was perceived as good enough because of his forced era. It doesn't matter what people think of his forced era now, but at the time it was perceived his forced era was great, and him coming back was hailed as this victory. And he's come back with such hatred and such vindictiveness, and as I said, it's at least with Chibs he tried, but RTD, in my opinion, hasn't even tried. The messaging for him, the fact that he's bit out with the world, was more important for him to use Doctor Who as that platform to get his grievances out to the world. And if you've got someone like that running your franchise, well, then you're never going to be successful, because this man is sacrificing Doctor Who for his own agenda, his own motives. And you know, the industry's been doing this. Look, it's been going on a while. It's not just RTD. It's been going on everywhere. But this mentality has to change. If it doesn't change, then, you know, where is the future go? What is the future for the industry if it continues down this path? Say we get another 10, 15 years of this shit. They still haven't learned their lessons. They don't course correct, and they still continue down this way. Like, are we looking at studios closing down, big major studios closing down, then in their panic then, or they're going bankrupt in their panic then, they're merging with each other and all of this, and then you've completely then destroyed any creativity. Because the more studios you have, you would think logically, with different people working in those studios, you would have a array of creativity. But then you start merging these studios all together because they have to, because they're not making fucking money. Then you're literally killing any hope or any chance of the industry being creative. So where do we go? Where's the industry heading? Where do we go? Like,
I think something will emerge and just take over eventually. You know, I don't know what it will look like. I don't know what it will be, but especially with AI coming into the picture, you know, something that I'm particularly scared about. But, you know, I just think if they don't learn, they'll learn the hard way. But sadly, it will be at the cost of everything we love. And I think it will just take a lot of time and a lot of patience. But eventually it'll be like a reset button. You know, we'll head back to really classical stuff and we'll just begin the cycle all over again.
Well, here's one for you. You're talking about it will take something. Well, in the music industry, we may have had our first case. So Spotify, as you all know, it's a platform. I do have it on my phone, but I hardly fucking use it myself, to be quite honest with you. I have my music downloaded onto my phone, and then I just fucking watch music videos on YouTube. So there's no need for me to really have Spotify. But listen to this. So there's this album that was put up on Spotify and has raced up the charts and stuff, right? And it's caused an awful lot of waves because people were trying to determine whether the band were a real band. Get this, right? Now, I'm telling you, the album's done well. Get this. Spotify has come out to say that it's the first AI-generated album and that nobody could tell the difference. Listen, I use AI for a bit of fun and stuff like that. I think it should be helped. I think it should be used to aid creativity, not to create. And I think this is the scary thing about AI. We've already seen sort of the level of AI videos now that they can do. I mean, you could literally create an AI video of setting someone fucking up, like it's getting that scary. But AI was always going to be a scary thing. Thing I want to ask you, Jack, is, I mean, how do you make sure that AI is treated with respect, and how do you think, you know, the powers that be should make sure that it is respected and it doesn't start infringing on, say, copyright or infringing on people? How do we stop that? See, that's the thing. I mean, Spotify, a big company, has put out an AI album. It's done well. It's got millions of views. People were speculating for a while before actually Spotify came out and actually said it was AI. But like the songs on it, I've listened to the album. The songs on it are fucking brilliant. You wouldn't even know it was AI. The musical instruments are perfect. They're not like the little AI music videos that I've done, right? These are top fucking tier, proper AI fucking generated fucking guitar solos and all of this. And it sounded really impressive. Where do we draw the line? How did the powers that be regulate this shit? Because they can hardly regulate the internet, even though they try their fucking best to do so. But it's very hard to fucking keep an eye on everything. So how did they stop this from fucking getting out of hand?
You switch it off, because I just think we're near the end, guys. Like, you know, artificial intelligence, that's the end of mankind. And
I don't think anybody's watched fucking Terminator or iRobot.
No. And you know what? If they did, they're probably so inspired by it, they want to bring it about. So it's just...
Do you think we're heading that way? I know I was kind of... I'm not taking the piss with the fucking Terminator reference and fucking obviously iRobot, because obviously they're fucking mixing flipping AI technology with robotics now and all of this shit. Like, we're going down that route that we've seen in fucking movies. I mean, do you think it'll happen? Do you think it could happen?
Yeah, I think the Cybermen will be a very real thing soon, and I just think that's the trouble. We're a very stubborn species, you know. We don't learn, and I just think AI right now is in the infant stage, so it's studying us. That's what people don't realize. The more we give to it, the more it learns. It studies us. And then once we start giving it access to more things than just art, that's when the serious shit's going to start happening. But I think in terms of just purely of art, I think you've effectively made artists meaningless. You've made us, unnecessary. And I think for me, as someone who's trying to make a career in that field, to be told, no, we don't need you because this machine can do everything you do in a matter of seconds that would take you months. And this is what people don't realize. I keep trying to explain this to so many people I talk to, but they're just not listening. And I just think, it is such a shame, because there's always someone who has to come and just ruin everything by creating something that is now going to ruin it for everyone. I mean, if AI is that good and it can make something that is authentic, then there really will be no need for creativity anymore. AI will just do it for you. And I just think this is only the beginning. I think it's going to get to the point where AI will be making decisions for us, and then eventually the AI will start creating its own AI. And when it's done that, it's surpassed us, and then we're inferior.
But you know what? Hate to say it, will probably be the best fucking thing for the human race, because we can't get our fucking act together on this planet anyway. There's always fucking a war. Someone have a fucking problem with someone. The one thing I will say, I know we're wrapping up now, guys, but the one thing I will say, when I was watching Armageddon, right, and it was the whole scene with the world coming together, because they knew that the end was coming, and I was thinking, maybe that's what we fucking need as a human race. We need an event that's so that puts us all on the brink that we have no choice but to fucking get our act together. I don't know what that could be. Maybe it is a big need, but
it's like children. It's like children, isn't it? You tell them that's dangerous. They never listen. Then when they fall and skin their knee, then they wish they had listened.
Exactly. And I don't know. But look, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on. I know you have to go. I'm going to go pee myself. I'm just saying pee on stream, right? I don't say pee all the time, right? I'm just saying it here because I'm on stream, because YouTube, you have to be careful what you fucking say. But it's been brilliant having you on. I've actually enjoyed this. We've done 3 hours, actually. That's fucking flew in. So that's brilliant. But as I said, I will have you on again. But just remind everybody before you do head off where they can find you. Because of as I already spoke about, you done a stream. Why am I stuttering? You done a stream with Problem Being Lee. So where can people find you?
Okay, so if you are interested in what I have to say on Doctor Who and pop culture and things in general, then you can check out my Jack Rabbit podcast YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing a series on Doctor Who where I talk about the merchandise and how I think we're getting ripped off. But if you do want to see what I think about action figures, collectibles, things like that, show off my personal collection, you can check out my Drawing Jack Rabbit YouTube channel, which has been going for a few years now, and I have reached 680 subs. I've been slacking a bit because just not really having the drive to do it, when my recent videos have barely been getting any views. But you should always do something because you love it, and that's why I'm really wanting to get my podcast channel going, because I think I have a lot to say, and I've got a lot of great people to come on and talk with me, Problem being one of them. So, and I've really enjoyed this video, Noel. It's just nice to talk about things you like instead of just hating everything all the time.
Yeah, I'm glad we kind of moved away from Doctor Who and we just start talking about different stuff. It's always nice to, especially the alien conversation. That was very interesting. We should definitely have more. And thank you, Lee, as always, for being ever present and being on streams. Really appreciate that. But Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And for once, people got to hear you talk. Sorry, I did put across it a couple of times, but in fairness, I didn't.
No, I should have mentioned, actually, you were cutting out for some reason. I'm not sure if it's my connection, but if it sounded like I was ignoring you or maybe not listening, I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah, it's probably my bleeding Chromebook. Don't worry about that. But it was absolute pleasure having you on. And we'll do it again.
Definitely.
We'll have a lot more of these conversations. Be brilliant to have you on regularly when you can, of course, because I know you're busy working and stuff. But we'll arrange some streams in between and stuff like that, and have some chats. And of course, I'll have other guests on as well, obviously, where we'll just have random chats. Obviously, if people want to talk about Doctor Who as well, we'll do that as well, because that's what we do, isn't it? Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow. There's a few videos in relation to Doctor Who, but I will have another little special video tonight, because apparently now I'm a bad German from the 1930s. We all are. Anybody that follows me here on the channel, anybody that supports me, apparently are all the bad Germans of the 1930s. And I'm going to actually address that, because I just feel like ripping the piss out of the person, and you know who it is. It's the same bloody idiot. But, you know, why not? It's a bit of fun for me. And, you know, he goes and plays the victim all the time. And then you can see the shit that he writes about you on X that he doesn't show to his own YouTube, his own subscribers on YouTube. He thinks he's being very clever and he can gaslight people. But he'll never do that here. Anyway, but listen, Jack, seriously, I'm not messing. Thanks for coming on. It's been a real pleasure. We'll do it again, and maybe we'll talk more about Alien. And then when Alien Earth comes out, maybe we'll do something if we think the show is worthy of an old chat. Maybe we'll do that. We won't commit to it, because obviously if it ends up being fucking shite, then why would we want to sit through some fucking more awful rubbish? Because I've already listened. I'm glad you didn't watch RTD's era. I feel blessed for you, because if I could turn back the clock, I probably wouldn't fucking go through that again. That was torture. That's all I'm going to say on that. Anyway, good night, folks. Have a good evening, and I'll talk to you very, very soon.
Good night, everyone.